Chapter 658. Garp's old face was black. He was about to stuff the seashell into his mouth. He ignored it and roared angrily. "Luffy, this old man will let you taste my iron fist," Garp said angrily. "Akagami, yes, it must be Akagami." Thinking of the straw hat on Luffy's head, Garp's face couldn't help but be gloomy. In the eyes of the Marines, that is the symbol of evil inheritance. Roger passed it to Akagami, and Akagami transferred it to Luffy. How can Garp not be angry? "No, you just said that it is possible, not certain," Garp said anxiously. "It may mean that it hasn't happened yet, and it also means that Luffy is not a pirate for the time being. I advise you to give up, Garp." Dustless shook his head. He had a deeper understanding of Garp's stubbornness. This is the general trend. It can't be stopped. Perhaps God has already defined it, and even if Garp goes to the East Blue to find Luffy, it will be too late. Garp's face was ashen, and then he shouted with dissatisfaction. "You should have touched Luffy. How can you catch him? This old man will let him taste my iron fist." The sky is high for the birds to fly. The sea is wide for the fish to jump. Capturing that brat Luffy is of no use, unless you tie his 4 limbs to Shanglo Shi and lock him by your side for the rest of his life," Dustless said indifferently like a cool breeze. "Luffy's character is more stubborn than Garp. If you want to persuade him to give up being a pirate, you might as well kill him directly." "Don't think too much. Yes, he went to be a pirate," Dustless said. Garp's face was full of loneliness. His whole body was full of sadness. He suddenly felt that his life was full of irony. His son, his grandson, and his adopted grandson all stood on the opposite side of the marine. How he felt in his heart can be imagined. Dustless was too lazy to talk nonsense with the sad Garp. He can only say that the D-genes are too crazy. They are too attached to the so-called freedom. In the vast sea, on a luxurious yacht, Dustless lazily soaked in the pool, very comfortable. Plop. Not knowing how much time had passed, the sound of something falling into the water, which was so soft that it could be ignored, entered Wu Chen's ears. Even though he kept it light and careful, it still woke up Wu Chen, who was half asleep. Suddenly opened his eyes, his black eyes showing a sharp edge. He said coldly, "Get dressed, now get out. You should know that I don't like to repeat things twice." A chilling light flashed in his cold eyes, and what he saw was none other than Yu Shi, whose clothes were barely covering her body. Dustless's face, his eyes turned red, his eyes turned blood red, the evil luster enough to distort time and to devour everything. "Ah! Ah!" She was so scared by Wu Chen's murderous aura that her face turned as pale as paper. Her beautiful face trembled. 2 lines of tears flowed from her beautiful eyes. Her beautiful eyes were filled with confusion. Seeing this scene, Dustless's heart was touched. His cold face loosened. The killing intent surging all over his body also disappeared. There was a little self-blame in his eyes. He felt that he owed this child too much. In the system's inner world, Yushi was alone. After all, in the system, except for women, there were also women. Some secular morals can be ignored, but the world outside the system is very different. With a gentle wave of her hand, Dustless's body was covered by a bright white coat. Yushi was also covered by it. "Master. I'm sorry, I couldn't stop, miss." She said that in the other world, everyone was like this. A burst of messy footsteps sounded. Hancock was panting. Yushi inherited the bloodline of Dustless and Kagaya. Naturally, she also inherited some ninjutsu. It was normal for Hancock to not be able to chase after people. "It's okay, let's sit down together." Shaking his head, Dustless took Yushi to a special chair and began to teach her how to be a man. First of all, and the most important point, you can't lose anything, and you can't compromise, because compromise is a disguised form of admitting defeat. Hancock's face was full of expectation. She thought she could hear the truth of life, but she didn't expect it to be a dirty trick. She could only smile bitterly, this father and daughter pair's thinking. Ordinary people can't keep up. She didn't talk nonsense, and slowly listened. Although these tricks are despicable, but they are good, and people can't find an excuse to refute. "Well, it's really annoying. It seems like I'm back to the original place." Luffy blinked his eyes and looked around the environment, repeating a dozen times, it was still the same. Needless to say, he was lost, and it was a dead end. When he was about to turn around and leave, a black shadow roared. The speed was extremely fast, and it disappeared in a flash. Bang! Ka-ka-ka! Luffy was caught off guard and was instantly knocked out, leaving a big hole in the wall. Luffy was lying in it. "Who the hell are you, bastard?" Luffy, who recovered from his shock, said. The tall man in front of him was wearing a green headscarf and carrying a sharp tachi on his back. When the sword was unsheathed, he felt a sharp feeling on his back. I thought that the one who came with the Marine Admiral was a master, but it turned out to be this kind of roadside trash. Looking closely, this person was the popular pirate hunter Roland Zoro. Zoro glanced at Luffy. Just as he was about to leave, Luffy stood up with a cold look in his eyes. "Oh, do you still have the strength to continue fighting? Your will is good. I take back what I just said." Seeing Luffy's ferocious eyes, Zoro was not afraid but happy. Zoro was originally a battle-hungry beast, and now Luffy's state was in his heart. The beast that likes to fight desperately also loves this feeling of blood. Dustless, who was far away on the sea, didn't know that his careless mistake would make Zoro and Luffy meet in advance, and the scene was also very different. Chapter 659. Luffy stared at Zoro, and the cold light in his eyes was clear, as if it could penetrate the void, like an eagle. "Hey, you, what is a Marine Admiral? You can't eat it. Why are you looking for me?" Pointing at Zoro, Luffy asked angrily. Luffy, who has lived in the Windmill Village since he was a child, is innocent in nature. Not to mention what Dustless does, he doesn't even know what his grandfather does. "Idiot, what's the use of deceiving yourself? I still won't let you go." With a sneer, Zoro thought that Luffy was talking nonsense. "Does this damn bastard think I'm an idiot?" Zoro was so angry that he couldn't help but curse in his heart. Decades ago, Dustless, as the youngest admiral in history, was already famous all over the world, respected by the world, and became a hot topic all over the world. Coming on a Marine Admiral's ship, but you don't know who he is? Who are you kidding? Zoro took these words as a lie, and there was a sense of humiliation, and at the same time, he looked at Luffy's eyes more ferociously. A cold murderous aura broke out of his body, and the surrounding temperature instantly dropped. "Tiger Hunt!" He raised his hand and slashed down with his saber. An awe-inspiring and domineering slash was launched. It tore a deep crack in the ground. Then, a dense mass of black rushed towards Luffy. "Don't take it!" Luffy's pupils suddenly shrank when he saw this. He was a rubber man and could resist most physical attacks, but being hit by this kind of weapon, it was inevitable that his head would bleed. Even his life was in danger, so he didn't think about it and immediately moved away. Poochie! At the moment of swallowing Luffy, his body had turned into an afterimage. Sure enough, it seems to be a good practice opponent. Zoro's eyes suddenly lit up, and his hands holding the tachi trembled with excitement. Instead of feeling fear, he was full of fighting spirit. After wandering in the East China Sea for many years, he was eager to fight with the strong. Whiz! His feet slammed on the ground, and Zoro swept out like a cannonball. His speed was no worse than Luffy's, and his eyes were like a raging beast. "Stop, you bastard!" Seeing this, Luffy hurriedly shouted. At the same time, he could not help but feel a sense of depression that he had never felt before. Not only was he attacked when he came to the strange island, he even got lost more than 10 times and was attacked by this fierce swordsman in front of him. The cause is the Marine Admiral. Luffy said that he really doesn't understand. Clang! Casually picking up a broken steel pipe to temporarily resist Zoro's ferocious offensive, Luffy looked at Zoro's ferocious face and took the opportunity to ask, "Tell me what that Marine Admiral is." Boom! Hearing this, Zoro's eyes became colder and colder, and the strength in his hand increased by 30%. He instantly forced Luffy back, and the latter crashed heavily into the wall. What kind of monster is this guy? His expression froze. He pretended as if nothing had happened, but his heart was in turmoil. Even if Luffy's physique was astonishing, his skin should at least have some abrasions. Now that he had forced him to retreat twice in a row, he was still unscathed. He was full of energy. Marine Admiral? That's the top fighting power of the Marine. Thinking of the Admiral's figure, the killing intent in Zoro's eyes gradually extinguished, and there was a touch of fanaticism. His goal is to catch up with the Admiral's figure and then reach the position of the world's greatest swordsman. Top fighting power, is it strong? Is it as strong as One Piece? Luffy asked innocently while touching his chin. For the outside world, he was serious and blank. He only had a little impression of Garp when he was a child because he spent his childhood in Fengche Town. Nonsense, of course it's strong as for one piece. At this point, Zoro's words stopped in his mouth. He didn't know, after all, the two sides haven't fought. It's none of your business whether One Piece or Admiral is strong or weak. Fight seriously for me. Seeing Luffy sitting directly on the ground modestly, Zoro shouted. Of course it matters. I'm the man who wants to be the Pirate King! Raising his arm, Luffy's eyes flashed with a bright light, and he said confidently. Hearing this, Zoro suddenly froze, looking at Luffy like an idiot, with some doubts in his eyes. He seemed to wonder why Dustless didn't catch this boy who likes to dream. Looking at the whole world, there are 3 positions for Marine Admiral, but there is only one position for the Pirate King, which shows how fierce the competition is. And compared with Luffy, who knows nothing about the outside world, Zoro's vision is much broader. This is only the weakest East Blue of the 4 seas. There are many pirates in the New World, and they are at the bottom of the New World. It sounds like a fantasy, but the facts are undeniable. Maybe he's too young, and there's no bounty. Staring at the confident Luffy, Zoro secretly guessed. His eyes became cold again, and he pressed towards Luffy without mercy. Hey! You, I haven't asked clearly, why are you attacking again? Luffy roared. Whiz! Zoro's eyes became more indifferent. He was speechless about Luffy's idiocy, and it was useless to say more. I don't know how strong an admiral is. But that man. Thinking of Dustless's figure, Zoro's heart was silent. Other people in their 40s or 50s can become an admiral, but how old is Dustless now? And he was an admiral decades ago. As the saying goes, capable people do more work. Maybe because he is too strong, he can serve as an admiral of Marine headquarters at a young age. I don't know what that guy's name is. It seems that few people in the world know his real name, and he doesn't have a nickname, because he rarely fights, and his enemies who have seen him are either caught or dead. Invincible's attacks suddenly stopped. Zoro looked at Luffy's innocent eyes and said, even so, some people in the world still gave him a title. The youngest and most powerful admiral in history. Chapter 660. Luffy was confused. Although he didn't understand what Zoro meant, to make such an Iron Man full of fear and fanaticism, Zoro must not be an ordinary person. That gigolo is actually so powerful. Luffy suddenly said with an expression that said, I understand. Luffy seemed to be surprised that Dustless was as powerful as Zoro said. Luffy opened his mouth exaggeratedly, and his stunned expression was quite comical. Seeing this, Zoro's eyes became cold. He raised his arm and waved his hand, and an unparalleled slash was sent out. The target was Luffy, who was in a daze. Before the slash arrived, a cold chill enveloped Luffy's body. Luffy's body shivered uncontrollably, and he quickly responded. Whoosh! His arm extended without limit, and he grabbed the railing in the distance and flew over instantly. Is this guy a legendary ability user? Zoro's eyes widened, and he was surprised. Although he had heard of the legend of Devil Fruit ability users before, this was the first time he encountered one, and he couldn't help but be surprised. Remembering that Luffy was fine when he was attacked, he suddenly felt relieved. In the eyes of ordinary people, Devil Fruit ability users were synonymous with mystery. But this is for the best. He is more worthy to be my opponent. Excitement appeared in Zoro's clear eyes. The muscles between Zoro's legs tightened, and he chased after Luffy with all his strength. His cold eyes clearly saw Luffy as a prey within reach. Hey. I don't have a deep hatred with you. You don't have to be so desperate. Seeing that Zoro was not going to act until he was certain, Luffy couldn't help but yell. He couldn't help but complain in his heart. A duel between swordsmen doesn't require hatred. If I want to, I will pursue. Zoro rushed over madly with his sword, and a storm was set off behind him. It was obvious how exaggerated his speed was, and he left a mark on the ground. Seeing this, Luffy's eyes lit up, and he realized that Zoro was not a weak opponent. I have no reason to fight with you. Luffy still yelled. His tone was somewhat different from his usual self. It gave people the feeling of a hunter looking at his prey. That's your business. Zoro snorted and didn't care. Bang! Luffy, who was galloping, suddenly stopped and landed on the ground like a cannonball. He raised a cloud of dust as he looked at Zoro. I can fight you, But if you lose, you have to become my companion. Lowering the brim of his hat, Luffy's bright and spirited eyes were filled with confidence. It was the complete opposite of his previous restrained sharpness. Now, he was like a peerless weapon that had been unsheathed. His threatening gaze made people not dare to look straight at him. Companions? It seemed that this was the first time Zoro had heard such a strange word. Zoro's footsteps suddenly stopped, and he lowered his head to think. He was a little tempted by Luffy's proposal. The East Sea was the smallest sea region and was publicly acknowledged as the weakest sea region in the 4 seas. Buzz buzz buzz. The rune on his waist suddenly trembled and let out a clear cry. It was filled with hot-blooded intent. Seeing this, Zoro was moved. The hesitation in his eyes turned into determination. This was the sword of his best friend. Zoro once swore that one day in the future, he would become the world's #1 swordsman. Guena's dream was to become the world's #1. Why not? I'm not scared of you. Since you can defeat me, I'll do as you wish. Zoro tied his headscarf with a cold light flashed in his eyes. His aura was raised to the extreme. Unlike the previous small fight, he was ready to face Luffy. Zoro was deeply touched by Luffy's confidence. If this guy really had the ability to defeat him, he would accompany him to explore the new world. After all, staying in the East Sea was the weakest place in the world. Seeing this, Luffy's smile turned into a real action. His body instantly disappeared and turned into a flash of lightning. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of Zoro. He completely ignored the definition of distance. In the blink of an eye. That monkey D. Luffy is exactly the same as Dustless, Sama's description. White Zetsu, who was observing the situation from afar, said in disbelief. Although Luffy had always acted like a careless person, but now that he lured Zoro into his trap, it was obvious that he was a smart person. Although sometimes Luffy was an idiot or naive, he was actually a very shrewd person. Small things were blurred, but in reality, he couldn't tolerate sand in his eyes. White Zetsu took a deep look at the two people who were passionately colliding. Dustless of Mariehua was still waiting for his other news. In the luxurious bedroom, the lights were bright and luxurious. Dustless, who came back from the East Sea, was tired. First, he lay in bed and slept for a long time. Then, he read the newspaper day after day. Then, he listened to White Zetsu's report. In the evening, he would occasionally go for a walk. For more than 10 years, it had become a daily routine. After about half an hour, White Zetsu emerged from the ground and looked at Dustless, who was relaxing on the sofa. He just stood aside and didn't speak. Did you find out the source? After an unknown period of time, Wuxia opened his eyes and asked calmly with an awe-inspiring luster. Yes, I found out. Hearing this, White Zetsu nodded. After several years of hard work, he finally found the source of the news. Take back the dark fruit by all means. Dustless said. About 10 years ago, Dustless used the dark fruit to successfully provoke the war between the Bigumam pirates and the Whitebeard pirates. Although it was finally eaten by Baron Eggy of the Bigumam pirates, the whereabouts of the fruit were unknown after Hawkeye successfully killed Baron Eggy. It wasn't until today that traces of it were found. The dark fruit seems to be useless to Dustless-sama. White Zetsu wondered. Dustless's strength was obvious to all, and the dark fruit was just icing on the cake. Its role was actually minimal and completely dispensable. It's useless to me, but it's useful to others. The dark fruit can make people a peerless powerhouse, but it can also make people a drowned rat. Chapter 661. There are two sides to everything. If you can use it well, you will naturally benefit yourself. If you don't use it well, you will only hurt yourself. Where is it? Dustless asked with interest. White Zetsu's face flashed a little helplessness when he heard the words. It may be a relationship of cause and effect. It is unexpected that it would fall into anyone's hands. His pale face was full of embarrassment. Speak quickly. Dustless frowned and said coldly. He cursed in his heart. If it wasn't for White Zetsu, who was personally created by him, he could be absolutely trusted. If it was someone else, he might have been blown to pieces many years ago. Thinking of this, Wuchen suddenly remembered the target of obtaining the devil fruit in the original work. 4th Division Captain Thatch. Blackbeard knew that after Thatch got the dark fruit, he finally killed and robbed the devil fruit. Therefore, he was wanted by the Whitebeard pirates and had to join the evil forces of Shichibukai. Did it fall into the hands of Blackbeard? Dustless's brows were slightly raised and his tone was a little colder. The warm room suddenly turned gloomy, and a bone-chilling cold descended. That's not it. He doesn't have such good luck. White Zetsu shook his head. Blackbeard is already witty enough. It's really unfair for God to be so good to him. It fell into the hands of the 2nd Division Captain, that is, Fire Fist Ace. White Zetsu told the truth. Some things have their own destiny. In the original work, it was the 4th Division Captain Thatch who got it, but now it has become Fire Fist Ace. Fire Fist Ace. Isn't that the little brat who wanted to take my head? In his mind, the kid he met in Windmill Town suddenly appeared. Dustless had a playful smile on his mouth. Just a few years ago, he quickly became popular throughout the sea. After challenging Shichibukai Jinbi, he challenged and attacked Whitebeard hundreds of times. As a result, he was caught every time. However, the heroic Whitebeard let him go with a bounty of 550 million berries. Maybe Whitebeard knew that he was Roger's son and showed mercy. Dustless whispered softly. But in any case, it doesn't matter now. Dustless coldly said, fortune and misfortune come hand in hand. But this time, it might be a misfortune instead of a blessing for you. White Zetsu nodded and fell into the hands of the Whitebeard pirates. This was not the beginning of luck, but the beginning of disaster. Immediately investigate the whereabouts of Fire Fist Ace. Once you've figured it out, report it to me immediately. Dustless said coldly, a sinister aura surging from between his brows. Towards a person who tried every means to kill him, Dustless would not be soft-hearted and lenient. Leniency was only limited to people who were sincere towards Dustless. Fire Fist Ace was not in this range. Even if he had some friendship with Garp, he could not understand. Public and private matters should be clearly distinguished. White Su nodded. Since it was Dustless's choice, he would absolutely respect it. This was the essence of existence. Then, like a ghost, he drilled into the depths of the ground. Father, who are you going to cheat again? Take me with you, okay? There was a burst of spatial fluctuations around him, and Yushi came out of it, rubbing against Dustless's face, smiling coquettishly, her eyes full of desire. This. Okay, but you can't make trouble for me, or I will immediately throw you to your mother. Dustless nodded and agreed to Yushi's coquettishness. In fact, he was also worried. Mariehua Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, are not good things. Leaving Yushi alone in Mariehua is tantamount to putting her into the mouth of a tiger or wolf. Although this little girl is talented, her actual combat experience is 0, and Kagaya has never taught her ninjutsu. Dustless is the same. Although he knows some ninjutsu, most of them are fancy and so on. Whether they are reliable in actual combat or not, only God knows. And more because of guilt, Dustless also wants to spend more time with her, which can be regarded as making up for the little regret in his heart. Although Fire Fist Ace has a bounty of 550 million berries, he can't make big waves. Father is the best. Seeing this, little Yushi smiled and gently pecked Dustless's face, giggling, singing, laughing, dancing, and laughing very happily. Dustless's mouth also swept a faint smile. It is enough to make his daughter happy. In fact, Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, and Blackbeard, as well as Fire Fist Ace, are not important, anyway, they are just props for fun. When he is in a good mood he might as well play with them, but when he is in a bad mood, they are just a punching bag, that's all. This little girl has been too idle recently. I have to teach her some self-defense techniques. Dustless secretly decided in his heart. Yushi inherited the physique of Dustless and Kagaya, as well as the unprecedented huge chakra. Dustless does not expect Yushi to be a strong help in the future. At least she can protect herself. The strength of several women in the system's inner world has been greatly improved. During this period, Dustless has collected many devil fruits and gave them to eat one by one. The light fruit that was previously extracted by the system was given to Kagaya to use, and it is also one of the ultimate devil fruits. Its power is peerless, and after decades of use, Kagaya has already exerted its power to the extreme. As for the other women, Dustless is naturally prepared and has aimed at a lot of powerful fruits. His confidants, The devil fruit ability is naturally second to none. It is impossible to make up the numbers. Father, I also want a devil fruit. Yushi, who was rolling in Dustless's arms, blinked her eyes and said with a hopeful tone, "What type do you want?" Rubbing the little girl's hair, Dustless asked calmly. Yushi tilted her head, making a thoughtful look, and then her eyes flashed. The ability of that guy called Monchi D. Luffy is good. Puff. Hearing this, the tea that Dustless sent to his mouth instantly burst out, and he looked at Yushi with a strange face. This is obviously hinting that Dustless killed Luffy. Chapter 662. Time flew by and 3 days passed in a blink of an eye. Dustless came to the bustling island according to White Zetsu's information and swept straight from the shore. The bustling crowd was clearly visible. Will there be traces of Ace in such a bustling city? Yushi took Dustless's hand and stared at him with childlike eyes and asked doubtfully. It should be. The source of White Zetsu's information has always been accurate and there is rarely any deviation. Dustless nodded softly. Although he also had doubts, White Zetsu has never made a mistake. This is an unquestionable fact. Let's go and see. Patting Yushi on the shoulder, Dustless smiled. Little Yushi nodded and followed Dustless into the street. Facing the dazzling goods on both sides of the street, Yushi, who entered the city, was immediately dazzled, looking at Dustless with watery eyes full of desire. This little girl, just pick 2 things. Father is here to do business. Dustless helplessly scratched Yushi's nose and smiled. Little Yushi nodded her head excitedly like a chicken pecking rice, then broke away from Dustless's arms and rushed into the crowd. Shopping in the supermarket seems to be a woman's nature in any world. Even children are the same. After half an hour, the shopping spree was over. When he ran out of the crowd, Wu Chen was already carrying countless bags of various sizes. Is this what you call 2 or 3 things? Dustless rolled his eyes, his face was depressed, looking at the 3 lives. It was the first time he became someone else's follower. Little Yushi just looked at Dustless with a grimace, then held the candy in her hand and jumped happily. Watching Dustless, who was following her, was speechless. His eyes turned sharply and he used Kamui to swallow the big and small bags. Dustless couldn't help but shake his head. If Obito knew, he would probably jump out of hell. Looking straight at Yushi in front, Dustless also followed. Perhaps the father and daughter were born with a bad sense of direction. After searching for an afternoon, they didn't find any trace of the Whitebeard pirates. They didn't even see the shadow of a pirate. As dusk approached, Dustless could not help but call out Zetsu. Those guys are very sneaky. They secretly trade devil fruits. Ace is lucky to have encountered the dark fruit, Whiteju said in a serious tone. The Whitebeard pirates are extremely powerful. Do they need to do devil fruit business? Little Moon, she wondered. Baizu just looked at Dustless. What he meant was obvious. All of this was thanks to him. There's nothing strange about it. The Whitebeard old man is probably trying to get some devil fruits to enhance the strength of the Whitebeard pirates. I'm afraid he realized that his body can't support him for a long time, so he made this plan to prevent accidents. Dustless's eyes lit up. Whitebeard is over 70 years old and has reached the limit of the human body. In addition, he is a pirate and has been on the battlefield for a long time. His body inevitably has countless old diseases. Some of them were given by Dustless before. How many people are there in the Whitebeard pirates? Dustless asked blankly. Not many. This kind of secret transaction is secretly monitored by Marine. There are only a few people on both sides. There are only 5 or 6 people in the Whitebeard pirates. Whiteju explained. Well, I thought Whitebeard would prepare dozens of coffins. I didn't expect there to be only 5 or 6. Dustless's killing intent made the surrounding air as cold as ice. Lead the way. With Dustless's cold order, the 3 disappeared into the dusk. Brat, you dare to trick us? Don't push your luck. Remember what kind of people are standing in front of you. Ace said sternly, showing off his ability. In the dark space, Ace looked at the iron boxes on the ground and warned. These large boxes are all devil fruits, but they are all garbage. Only the dark fruit is an exception, but this group of country bumpkins didn't seem to recognize it. However, there is only one dark fruit. Most of them are artificial devil fruits passed down by Doflamingo. Although Kaido used artificial devil fruits to build an army of devil fruits, Whitebeard still chose to be careful and abandoned the artificial devil fruits. The unscrupulous selling is also deliberately allowed by Dustless. It won't be long before those people slowly collapse and die. Nonsense. So what if it's a man-made devil fruit? It's the real deal. Look at 100 Beast Kaido, his devil fruit army swept through the new world. The devil fruit dealer in charge of the transaction with Ace quibbled. How dare you? You still dare to argue? Ace glared at him angrily, flames already burning behind his back. You are the Whitebeard pirates. You have to follow the rules. Otherwise, no one will trade with you in the future except for me. Don't destroy your own future. The pirate responsible for the transaction was not willing to be outdone, but he was obviously not confident. After all, the other side is the Whitebeard pirates, one of the Yonko, 4 emperors. The Whitebeard pirates are the law. This is the rule. Hearing that, Fire Fist Ace laughed out of anger. The flames behind him burned even more intensely. Just as he was about to finish them off with a single blow, an untimely teasing voice rang out. The words of the Whitebeard pirates are the rules and the way? That's just self-deception. Can't you see that the reason why Whitebeard is working so hard to collect devil fruits is to improve the strength of your group of sons? To prevent you from being swallowed by other pirates when he dies one day. The disdainful voice resounded through the sky. In the dark warehouse, it didn't disperse for a long time. When mentioning the Whitebeard pirates, it was full of disdain and contempt. Ace suddenly turned his head and stared coldly at the place where the voice sounded. Since everything is according to the rules of the underworld, then I will be the arbitrator as a third party. Now I judge that the dark fruit is mine. As for you people, you will die to purify the air of the world. The calm voice was filled with carelessness, but it was strangely certain. Wu Chen and the other two walked out from the darkness. Chapter 663. Aware of Dustless's existence, Fire Fist Ace's pupils suddenly shrank. He instantly thought of the person who was forcibly abducted and flew away a few years ago. He always remembered it in his heart and didn't dare to forget. But after knowing that Dustless was a Marine Admiral, Ace did not rush to take revenge. After failing to challenge Dustless, he simply joined the Whitebeard pirates so that he could come in and face Dustless head-on. Don't stare at me so fiercely. You know that I am a very timid person. Seeing Ace staring at him, Dustless pretended to be afraid. Oh, it turned out to be a vase, but looking at it, it's just a pretty boy. The big man who was responsible for fighting Ace breathed a sigh of relief and stared at Dustless, Yushi, and White Zetsu with a green luster. Some things can't be seen, and seeing it means that he has to shut up. Pretty boy? Hearing this, Dustless was stunned and touched his face subconsciously. It seems that people in every world like to call him that. Father does have the talent to be a pretty boy, but it's better than the stinky beard that no one wants. Little Yushi blinked seriously. Dustless couldn't help but smile and gently tap the little girl's forehead with a little helplessness. This daughter's personality coincides with his and always likes to tease others. Looking for death. The brawny man who was responsible for trading with Fire Fist Ace was furious. How could he not hear Yushi's ridicule? He immediately waved the blade in his hand and whistled straight. The same was true for several brawny men behind him. Poochie. Dustless saw this scene and ripples splashed in the void behind him. Several long spears made of gold shot out and directly penetrated the abdomen of the 5 men, leaving clear bloody holes. Seeing this, Yushi's eyes lit up. Just as she was about to ask, Wu Chen's magnetic voice that seemed to be in control of everything sounded first. The king's treasure is only limited to me in the world. At the same time, his eyes carefully examined Fire Fist Ace, and he couldn't help but have a bright feeling. Now he is hundreds of times stronger than the young child of the beginning. You are much stronger than before. Thinking of the weak Ace who could be destroyed with a wave of his hand, and looking at him whose strength reached 550 million berries, Dustless couldn't help but feel emotional. This is all thanks to you. You are my motivation to move forward. Ace said contemptuously as he looked at the pirates who were killed by Dustless. These are all scum. Even if the 5 people add up, their bounty is less than 100 million berries, and their strength is completely different from his. I can see regret in your eyes. Ace, who was full of fighting spirit, growled. He can be sure that Wu Chen did not expect that today he would become a big pirate with a bounty of 550 million berries. Regret. Hearing this, Dustless's mouth curled into a playful smile, and he asked with great interest, "What do you think I will regret?" "Regret that you have become a pirate with a bounty of 550 million berries. Or, do you think that your current strength can threaten me, so you think that I am afraid of you, so you are happy?" With contempt in his eyes, Dustless's eyes were full of indifference. The loneliness of being at the top deeply stung Ace's nerves. His eyes were full of sneers as he looked at Ace as if looking at a bug. As the second division captain of the Whitebeard Pirates, Ace's dignity was seriously challenged. Looking at Dustless coldly, Ace's killing intent was awe-inspiring. This is naked contempt. Dustless knows that he is the second division captain of the Whitebeard Pirates, but he is still so frivolous. Obviously, he is satirizing the Whitebeard Pirates, and the person he respects the most, Whitebeard. You think you have calculated everything and can control everyone's fate? Ridiculous. The gears of fate are not something that people like you can predict, and I am not in the range of your narrow eyes. Ace shouted loudly. Immediately, his body jumped up, and bright sparks flashed in mid-air, and the hot temperature instantly melted the steel. Why don't you just vanish into thin air? Stop being so arrogant. Fire fist. A giant flame arm blasted over, and the temperature was frightening. In an instant, the entire dark warehouse was lit up, and the monstrous oppression was frightening. You are the one who deceives yourself. Taking a step forward, Dustless stared indifferently at the large flame fist falling down. He raised his white hand and a golden beam converged at the tip of his thumb. Laser! Whiz! Accompanied by a sharp piercing sound, the light condensed at the tip of his finger whizzed out, drawing a straight line in the air and unavoidably coming into contact with the falling flaming fist. Boom boom boom. There was a devastating explosion in mid-air, and the blazing heat wave directly destroyed the dark warehouse, and the steel almost turned into liquid in an instant. The coquettish dusk in the evening also shone, enveloping this wailing island. What a gorgeous sunset! But it's also suitable for the final requiem of your Whitebeard Pirates. So that you won't come out of the grave to trouble me. It's also luxurious. Dustless chuckled. What arrogance! Ace's chill condensed, and the hot flame gathered in his hand. The oppressive posture seemed to be more terrifying than the rising sun, and the ground was burned black in an instant. A dazzling light enveloped Dustless, making him subconsciously close his eyes. Seeing this, Ace's face outlined a sneer arc, as if the victory was in his hand, and the raised big hand slammed down. Flame ring pillar of fire. Boom boom boom. The blazing pillar of fire engulfed Dustless in an instant. The earth trembled. This unexpected calamity was like the wrath of the heavens. It happened so suddenly that Dustless was completely unaware that he was directly engulfed. God can't take you. I can only punish evil and promote good instead of him. Seeing Dustless being swallowed, Ace said, and a Marine Admiral would be injured by this move. Punish evil and promote good? I really don't know what this kind of small action is, and you can talk without knowing the immensity of heaven and earth. It seems that the Whitebeard Pirates really have no one. Chapter 664. His eyes widened as Ace stared at the figure coming out of the fire pillar. His face was incredulous as his eyes widened and even showed signs of falling out. This guy can withstand fire ring, with his physical strength alone? Ace's mentality was accustomed to storms and waves, but he couldn't help but feel suffocated at this moment. He never felt that this move could kill Dustless, but it's too unreasonable for him to be unscathed. You want to kill me, aren't you prepared? Dustless's eyes looked at Ace carefully as he said indifferently. Between the words, there was no trace of discomfort. Obviously, it wasn't an act. Don't be so surprised, I can tell you clearly. Now is the beginning of your nightmare. Dustless sneered. Although the moves are exaggerated and powerful, it can't hurt him. Don't get carried away. Ace shouted with a dark face. He suddenly realized that as long as he gave in a little, Wu Chen would go from bad to worse. If you gave him a jujube in return, he would give you 2 tight slaps and step on your face a few times. Only then would he be satisfied. So what if I'm proud? Can you bite me? Dustless provoked. Then he raised his eyes and quietly looked at Ace, who was still in shock. His pupils twisted sharply and his eyes suddenly turned scarlet Sharingan. The evil eye power began to rage. Amaterasu. The enchanting black fire instantly swallowed Ace's body, but he was obviously prepared. The Amaterasu just passed through his body and didn't touch Ace. Are you an idiot? You have to use armament hockey to deal with a Logia user. Ace sneered, reminding Dustless out of kindness. Hearing this, Dustless's eyes flashed with contempt. I just don't think it's necessary to use armament hockey to deal with you. Don't be too self-righteous. Ace heard this and laughed angrily. As a Logia user and the 2nd Division captain of the Whitebeard Pirates, it was the first time he heard someone dare to speak so arrogantly. To deal with him without using armament hockey, Whitebeard may not have the courage to say so. Dustless didn't bother to talk nonsense with Ace. He directly appeared in front of him like a ghost and raised his right hand, revealing a small black hole. Seeing this, Ace did not hesitate and hurriedly used his elemental transformation to dodge the attack. 10,000 Mammoth Heavenly Attraction. A strange gravitational force enveloped Ace. That evil and cold devouring power seemed to want to devour him forever. On the other side of Dustless's little black hand, it seemed to be the abyss of the universe. As long as he was devoured, he would not be able to take another step forward. Determination flashed across Ace's eyes. He immediately cancelled his elemental transformation and broke free from the control of gravity. His entire body instantly felt much more relaxed. Seeing Ace materialize, Dustless was like an old fisherman who had been quietly waiting for a long time. He quietly appeared behind Ace, a sneer on his face. Then, a heavy kick mercilessly smashed down. Boom, boom, boom. A black shadow swept the ground out of thin air, the dust on the ground splashed, a large deep pit appeared, and the ground in the pit became like particles of debris. Cough, 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 Poochie. After a long while, Ace in the deep pit supported his body with his arms on the ground and spat blood uncontrollably from the corner of his mouth. Dustless didn't use hockey and actually attacked him, and it was not because of the attribute. He immediately looked at the black hole in the palm of Dustless's hand. After staring for a long time, his face was still blank. You are also the son of the Pirate King. Don't be so ignorant. It will insult your father's wisdom. Seeing Ace's ignorant face, Dustless chuckled. You dare to? Witnessing Dustless being so arrogant and conceited, Ace's loosened palm clenched again. When Logia's ability is elementalized, it means that the body loses mass and naturally can't escape the capture of gravity. Not only you, the host of the flame fruit, but every plant in the world is affected and restrained by gravity. Regardless of whether Ace could understand or not, Dustless explained. Why is the dark fruit called the most ferocious fruit? Because its ability is to control gravity, which means that everything in the world is affected by gravity, it's just that the gravity is strong or weak. The gravity of Ace's elementalization can naturally swallow him. In other words, gravity is the natural enemy of the whole world. However, the key is the strength of the host's own gravity. Even when gravity is strong to a certain extent, light can't escape its capture and will be easily swallowed, let alone the flame fruit. Do you still think you have a chance now? It's too boring to use armament hockey to deal with you. It's more suitable for me to trample on your self-esteem like this. Dustless stood with his hands behind his back and calmly looked at Ace. In the moment when he actually met Ace's face, the outcome of the battle was already decided. The outcome of the battle was not how Ace broke out, but how long Dustless wanted him to play. The natural enemy of everything? Why don't you try this? I hope you'll be able to take him down safely. Forcibly supporting his body to stand up, Ace looked at Dustless without fear. He was ready to die, and at the same time, his eyes signaled the crew of the Whitebeard pirates who had been watching the battle in the dark. It was obvious that he was telling them to run. Clearly, Ace was going to risk everything and go all out. Want to run? I'm a glint fruit user. What do you think the word escape means? Staring at the black shadows fleeing in the distance, Dustless sneered again and again. His body swept with a bright luster, and he almost came to them in an instant. A strong oppressive flash gathered on his toes. Speed is power. Have you ever been kicked at the speed of light? But looking at your eyes, you shouldn't have enjoyed such high-level treatment. The light gathered on his right calf roared down, and the straight line in the air was particularly dazzling. Chapter 665. Run. Don't you Whitebeard pirates pay attention to teamwork? In that case, going to heaven together is also a kind of teamwork. A voice filled with indifference to life resounded through the clouds. The few figures, who wanted to flee in a panic, were stunned. They stared blankly at the straight beam of light descending from the sky. Their eyes and faces were filled with despair. Dustless is not surprised by this scene. Most pirates say that they don't care about life and death, but how many people can really see through it? Even he himself is afraid of death. Boom! The light from the soles of his feet hit the ground like a meteorite, setting off a violent storm and vibration. A large flame of light swept up from the ground out of thin air, and then an invisible wave of air turned into a turbulent shock wave that scattered, swallowing everything around it. The hot fire melted and destroyed the surrounding geography, leaving a deep scorched pit in the ground. Boom! A special box escaped the catastrophe, but it was also burned and the surface turned dark red. Obviously, as long as the fire continued to persist for a while, it would melt. You killed them. Eyes locked on Dustless, Ace roared hysterically. The Whitebeard pirates pay attention to unity, and each of them is the son of Whitebeard, which also proves that the feelings of their crew members are also like brothers. Good companions on the road to the underworld, so you won't be so lonely. Dustless said with an expression that should be so. Since Whitebeard pays attention to teamwork and sends all of them on the road to heaven, Dustless feels that this special service is quite humane. Holding the iron box in his hand with a heavy look, Ace couldn't feel the hot temperature. He was like a walking corpse. The death of his companions hit Ace so hard that it almost made him collapse. Even if I die, I'll drag you down with me. Ace roared in a low voice, determined to die. Dustless always remains indifferent to this. It's just the last cry of the beast. It's meaningless. It's just an extremely boring verbal protest. It's not very practical. For this group of pirates, Dustless has always held a contemptuous attitude. They become pirates in the name of pursuing their dreams, but more than 95% of pirates are killing and looting, and there is no rule that states that pursuing one's dream is to become a pirate. This is just their self-deceiving idea. Yang Yen. With a burst of sound, Ace's limbs suddenly appeared with some hot flames, wrapping around him, which is also a disguised defense that can resist most physical attacks. Flashy but impractical, if this trick is useful. Your Whitebeard pirates would have dominated the New World long ago. Dustless sneered with a cold light in his eyes. Then his pupils widened, and the majestic evil eye power lashed out, locking Ace's position. Almost in a short blink of an eye, Dustless came in front of him, gathering a powerful force in his hand, and mercilessly smashed it towards Ace. As for the flames covering his limbs, he simply ignored them. A single spark could not start a prairie fire. Boom! A powerful fist hit Ace's abdomen, but he had already expected Dustless to launch an attack and used elementalization to avoid the fatal fist. Your sneak attack, I predicted it. With a sneer, Ace's right arm suddenly erupted with a large flame fist, completely condensed by a raging fire. Fire fist! The moment the hot flames engulfed Dustless, his left eye suddenly widened, and a strange purple eye with 9 mysterious magatama suddenly flashed. You predicted it, what's the use? I also expected it, but it doesn't make sense to predict your tricks. The dry corners of his mouth opened slightly, and an indifferent voice came out of it. The corners of his clothes were eroded by some kind of force and swelled instantly. Shinra Tensei. The repulsive force visible to the naked eye erupted in an instant, forming a 360-degree absolute defense. The moment the mighty flaming fist came into contact with Dustless, it was simply swallowed up by this repulsive force. In an instant, the matter was settled peacefully. The exploding flames were like rain splashing all over the ground. Dustless's eyes fell on the broken corner of Ace's clothes, and he smiled, and the Rinnegan Sharingan in his left eye widened again, emitting a mysterious ripple, and the 9 black magatama in the eye socket trembled slightly. Heavenly hand power. Dustless's position and the broken corner of his clothes instantly changed. Disappeared. Seeing Wu Chen disappear strangely like a ghost, Ace exclaimed in surprise. His tone was filled with surprise and disbelief, revealing the meaning of a fantasy story. A living person suddenly disappeared without a trace in front of his eyes, and his breath was completely gone. No one could accept it, and the shock it brought was unparalleled. Immediately, he felt a chill behind him, and subconsciously turned his head, and the scene in front of him was quite horrifying. Dustless's face was covered with frost, and his cold eyes had no luster, just like a corpse, staring at Ace with eyes full of light, and there seemed to be countless fangs and a bloody mouth that could easily swallow him. At this moment, Ace never felt that death was so close. Fire gun! Resisting the suppression of the fear in his heart, Ace's fingers shot out continuous small flames. Bang bang bang! The sudden flame instantly swallowed Dustless, igniting his head, and the raging fire burned. A person's head was burning with an inextinguishable fire, and there was no chance of survival. It should be working now. Ace heaved a sigh of relief. But suddenly, a ghostly low moan and blazing heat came, causing his relieved heart to immediately tense up again. How is this possible? Looking up, he saw a strange black flame on Dustless's head. The strange black flame swallowed Ace's flame. At first it was the human face, and almost instantly it swallowed and annihilated the crimson flame on Dustless's face, revealing his unscathed self. Chapter 666. The black flames were noble and evil, like the king of all fires, swallowing Ace's flames easily, as if he had met his natural enemy and had no power to fight back, overbearing and direct. It can devour my flames? Ace's tone was filled with surprise and doubt. He was quite surprised. The flame of flame fruit is famous in the world for its power. Ace said that it was the first time in his life that he had encountered a flame that could swallow him. It's really not simple. The vicissitudes of life sighed from Dustless's mouth. As his voice fell, the flames burning on his head also disappeared, revealing the intact Dustless. His skin and face were abnormally clean, as white and tender as before, and even his hair was not damaged at all. Flame attacks are useless against me. In fact, you lost at the beginning of this battle. Dustless looked at Ace and said coldly. His eyes widened, and the overbearing and unstoppable repulsion broke out again. Shinra Tensei! Boom! Although he used elementalization to escape at the first time, his whole body turned into a pile of flames and he was easily bounced back by the oncoming repulsion. The flames were all over the ground. Why didn't father kill him directly? Yushi blinked and asked curiously. Maybe he wants to use him, Fire Fist Ace. The value of using him is far greater than killing him. White Zetsu guessed in a deep voice. Following Dustless for many years, he was not ignorant. The Whitebeard pirates are loyal and righteous, which is their unity and fatal weakness. Emotional bondage is always a double-edged sword, and it depends on how it is used. If it is not handled properly, it will naturally become a fatal poison. If I remember correctly, you were full of confidence just now, but now you are in a mess. Dustless said indifferently, his angular face without sadness or joy. The flames on the ground closed, and Ace's figure was recondensed, holding the iron box in his hand tightly. His eyes changed back and forth, and the hesitation on his face finally turned into determination. Your purpose should be for the dark fruit. Ace's sharp eyes looked straight at Dustless, and he said affirmatively. The early bird gets the worm, and the early worm gets eaten by the bird. Up until now, Ace could only admit that he was unlucky. Facing this cruel reality, Ace believed that he was no match for Dustless. However, he would never let Dustless get what he wanted. I'm indeed here for the dark fruit. Why? Could it be that you want to give it to me? Stop dreaming. Even if you beg for mercy, I won't let you go. As Whitebeard's 2nd Division captain, you should understand your value. Dustless said bluntly. Ace only had a sneer on his face, and the corners of his mouth curled up into a strange smile, as if victory was already in his grasp. Are you still confident in yourself? Dustless frowned. He couldn't help but admire Ace's tenacity. At this point, even an ignorant child could tell who was the victor. You want it. Ace threw the iron box aside and took out the dark fruit with a strange purple pattern. The smile on the corner of his mouth became more obvious. Ace looked at Dustless playfully, and there was a hint of ridicule in his tone. He smiled and said, What do you think will happen if I eat it? Having said that, Ace's smile became wider. This was also a thought that suddenly flashed in his mind. The world said that a devil fruit ability user could only eat one, but no one knew what would happen if he ate two. Ace was gambling. If he could die, it would be best. This way, neither he nor the dark fruit would fall into Dustless's hands. If he didn't die, his strength would skyrocket. Therefore, he looked at Dustless expectantly. He thought that Dustless's face would turn blue, but what he saw was surprisingly calm. If you can eat it, you can try. Dustless looked at Ace calmly with a frozen expression. Hearing this, Ace's face darkened. Dustless' words seemed to mean that he didn't dare and didn't have the ability. It was as if the devil fruit in his hand could fly out of thin air. Flying into a rage out of humiliation, Ace directly brought it to his mouth. Ha ha ha. Ace, he's right. You really can't eat it. That thing is mine. A naive kid like you can't use the dark fruit's ability. Just give it to me, idiot. Unbridled mockery resounded through the boundless sky, followed by a gust of wind that swept past Ace. The dark, chilly wind made one's hair stand on end. Suddenly, he felt that his hand was empty. The devil fruit that was about to be put into his mouth disappeared into thin air. He subconsciously opened his eyes. Bastard! Which bastard stole my devil fruit? After a moment of sluggishness, Ace opened his eyes and his eyes spat fire. Because of his excessive anger, his already overdrawn physical strength erupted again. It was even more vast and infinite than before. He instinctively looked at Dustless, but saw that he had an expression that said it had nothing to do with him. He pointed to the figure hidden in the darkness on the left. Ace subconsciously forgot about it. Titch? Why are you here? Ace's expression changed drastically as he glared at him with an unfriendly expression. The blurry figure was clearly visible in the darkness. It had messy hair, an ugly face, uneven teeth, a protruding belly, and a dense chest hair. In the whole world, other than Blackbeard Marshal D. Titch, no one else had such a sneaky look. Ace breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it was one of his own. No, this guy had an ambush. How did he know that I traded the devil fruit with others on the island? Ace's relieved heart suddenly tightened. Realizing that something was wrong, Ace's face changed drastically. TSK, the final winner is still me. Blackbeard smiled proudly, unusually arrogant. In fact, he had been secretly watching the battle for a long time. He was forced to come out when he saw Ace about to swallow the dark fruit. How did he know that you traded? Isn't that simple? Because the people you killed were originally my underlings. Blackbeard became even more pleased with himself when he spoke up to this point. Every devil fruit transaction, he actually sent people to secretly observe. The fundamental purpose of his hiding in the Whitebeard pirates was to get the dark fruit. As for the filial piety of his father, he left it to his filial sons. Chapter 667. Looking at the dark fruit in his hand, Blackbeard was beaming with joy. His eyes were filled with greed. For today, he had endured for 10 to 20 years and suffered countless humiliation. Until today, his dream was realized. Blackbeard's eyes emitted the glow of a tiger and wolf. Even his breathing was unusually heavy. Immediately, he opened his large mouth and swallowed without any hesitation. He didn't even peel the skin. Dustless, Sama, why didn't you stop the kid? The dark fruit is gone again. White Zetsu was depressed. He was sure that Dustless had the ability to stop him, but he remained indifferent. Wu Chen just kept silent and had a strange expression on his face. After a while, seeing that Blackbeard had completely swallowed the entire dark fruit, Dustless couldn't help but say, "How loud is Blackbeard's voice?" He swallowed the dark fruit directly and didn't choke to death. His words petrified everyone in an instant, including Fire Fist Ace's body. He looked at Dustless in a new light. This is really big. White Zetsu, who recovered, agreed. Everyone nodded secretly. They didn't expect Blackbeard to be able to swallow the dark fruit. It was rare for a monster to be able to swallow a devil fruit with a human body. Naturally, Blackbeard could hear the mockery in his words. He just sneered. Keha! This power really makes one jump for joy. Blackbeard said as he danced with joy. His entire body was emitting black light as he carefully experienced the dark energy that was swimming in his body. Blackbeard's rough old face was fanatical, filled with excitement and joy. Blackbeard, why are you here? Ace questioned. His murderous intent was obvious. It seems that you are an idiot. Blackbeard sneered. I lurked in the Whitebeard pirates from the beginning for the dark fruit. You want me to work for Whitebeard? Do I look like such a kind person to you? Blackbeard teased. His thick lips were raised high as if he was a villain who had achieved his goal. These words instantly aroused Ace's killing intent. Mirror fire. Boom! Just as he was about to kill Blackbeard, an unexpected gunshot suddenly sounded. Ace's body had a terrible bloody hole out of thin air. Excellent marksmanship. It seems that Blackbeard hasn't done nothing these years. He has a reliable companion. His pupils narrowed as he thought of the Blackbeard pirate sniper. Dustless nodded. This bullet obviously has armament hockey, so it can penetrate Ace. Overconfident trash. You think you can kill me? Looking at Ace with disdain, Blackbeard laughed sinisterly. At the same time, he looked at Dustless with a cautious look. As the youngest and arguably the strongest admiral in marine history, his strength is beyond imagination. Being able to crush Ace like a bug explained everything. Moreover, looking at Wu Chen's appearance, it was obvious that he wasn't serious. Dark water. Seeing that Dustless didn't show any signs of interfering, a strong gravitational force shot out from his hand. It was abnormally powerful, and it easily sucked Ace over in an instant. Boom! Ruthlessly stepping on the ground, Blackbeard looked down at Ace. How about it, my 2nd Division captain? If you are willing to be my subordinate, I don't mind letting you go. At the same time, he looked at Dustless with a hidden look, which obviously means that they can join hands to kill him. In this regard, Dustless turned a deaf ear and stood in place, completely ignoring both of them. Blackbeard was furious. He had already eaten the dark fruit, and this kid was still so arrogant. In your dreams. I'd rather be that man's subordinate than you. You're even more despicable than him. Ace sneered and pointed at Wu Chen. Hearing this, Blackbeard's face turned green. You are looking for death, Blackbeard said with a fierce look in his eyes. There was a dark luster in his hand, and space and time showed signs of distortion. When he was about to kill Ace, a cold smile swept across his face, cruel and numbing. Since you want to die, I will fulfill your wish and send you to heaven, but it is too easy for you to die so quickly, Captain. Blackbeard said in a joking tone. The Whitebeard pirates pay attention to their companions. I can tell you that a few years ago, the death of the 4th Division Captain Thatch was caused by me. No. I encouraged him to steal the dark fruit. I didn't expect that fool to be so fearless for the safety of Whitebeard. What an idiot. Ha ha ha. Blackbeard laughed wildly, and his proud smile was full of endless arrogance. You bastard, I'll tear you to shreds. Hearing this, Ace's eyes were bloodshot and looked as if they were about to fall out. The Whitebeard pirates' principle of mutual love is deeply rooted in people's hearts. There is no distinction between the crew members, and they are all one of Whitebeard's sons. Hey, if you don't like me, you can come and kill me. You're just a mere rat. You should know when to stop. A ghostly voice suddenly resounded behind him. Blackbeard was suddenly stunned. He turned his head abruptly and looked at Wu Chen, who was behind him with his hair standing on end. Looking at your silly look, I am upset. Do you really think you are in control of everything? Don't be so self-righteous. Dustless sneered. Light speed kick. Regardless of how the dull Blackbeard was, his calf covered with golden luster mercilessly hit Blackbeard's old face, and he suddenly flew out like a cannonball. The ground was pulled into a deep scorched gully. Idiot, you provoked Thatch to steal the dark fruit, but the source of the dark fruit is me. In the end, you are just a pawn in my calculations, idiot Blackbeard, hee hee. Chapter 668. Dustless smiled and looked at Blackbeard, who was like a stray dog, and his heart was particularly refreshed. This old guy is as smart as a mouse, and it's not easy to get rid of him. What did you say? Blackbeard roared, covering his burnt face. The power of the light-speed kick was unusual, and it happened suddenly. There was no gap in Blackbeard's defense, and he was completely exposed under Dustless's eyes. In addition to being destroyed, he was still destroyed. You bastard, I will not let you go, absolutely. He got up from the ground in a sorry state and looked at his nose. Blackbeard's heart was cloudy. He didn't expect Wu Chen to be so ruthless. His nose was kicked crooked. Ah! Don't look so hateful. No matter what, you ate the dark fruit. I thought you could withstand this blow, Wu Chen said matter-of-factly, seemingly quite disappointed. Blackbeard's face was blue. If he could, he would never want to fight a marine admiral. After all, the strength of an admiral is known to the world. Even Kizaru, Akainu, and Akiji are now among the top peerless masters. The one in front of him is even more shocking. He served as a marine admiral 10 years ago. His information is the oldest, and he rarely fights. Of course, it's because the people who have seen Dustless fight have disappeared. What do you mean, what does the dark fruit from 10 years ago have to do with you? Blackbeard asked gloomily, and at the same time, he was on guard against Dustless. He glared at Ace fiercely. As long as there was a chance, he would choose to kill him. Don't you understand? I thought you were smarter than others, but now it seems that I took it for granted. Dustless shook his head and sighed. In order to cause the war between the Whitebeard pirates and the Bigumam pirates, I contributed the dark fruit that I had been looking for several years, and you are responsible for appearing in my play. Dustless said calmly and seriously talked about the plan 10 years ago. In order to cause the war between the Whitebeard pirates and the Bigumam pirates, he spent a lot of effort. He was afraid that no one would be fooled. This is thanks to the witty Blackbeard who recommended himself as the first male lead. Thinking of this, Dustless involuntarily gave a thumbs up to Blackbeard. His acting skills had reached perfection. First male lead. Hearing this, Blackbeard's rough face twitched and he stared at Dustless. If eyes could kill, Dustless would have been cut into pieces by now. The blood and chi in his chest roiled, and Blackbeard felt as if there was a huge boulder blocking his chest, almost suffocating him. Go to hell. Blackbeard stared at Wu Chen and flashed a cruel smile. Although I don't know what kind of fruit you have, it seems to be very similar to Kizaru's. It would be disrespectful for me to refuse. After saying that, Blackbeard's body emitted a strange black gravitational force. Just like what you said before, nothing can escape the grasp of gravity. Blackbeard's palm suddenly turned pitch black and aimed at Wu Chen, erupting with a strong gravitational force. Dark water. The powerful gravity pulled Dustless back in an instant. Blackbeard sneered, then his right arm clenched into a fist and smashed towards Dustless's face without hesitation. Dustless just responded with a sneer. Shinra Tensei. At the moment of contact with Blackbeard, a strong repulsive force broke out and swallowed Blackbeard in an instant. Boom! Blackbeard, who was caught off guard, was instantly bounced away. The powerful force smashed several walls and fell into a deep pit with blood all over his body. Damn it, it hurts! Blackbeard screamed. His fat body fell to the ground and rolled, looking extremely painful. His 5 fingers were all wearing various gemstone rings, showing the temperament of a nouveau riche. Playing with gravity in front of me. I really don't know where you get your confidence from. Dustless rubbed his head and looked at the screaming Blackbeard with a headache. His face was full of helplessness. In front of Tensigan and Rinnegan, the dark fruit's gravity was not worth mentioning. When the power of Chibaku Tensei reached a certain level, it was enough to create the moon, and the repulsive force of Tensigan could control the moon. Compared with these two, the dark fruit was meaningless. In addition, the biggest disadvantage of the dark fruit was that it was the essence of darkness and could not be elementalized. The pain it suffered was also doubled, so it would be torturous to be hit by Shinra Tensei. This pain is nothing. If I get you, I can get your ability. This pain is not worth mentioning at all. Blackbeard stood up crazily, and his whole body was covered with monstrous darkness. It was vast and surging like a black dragon, instantly spreading and swallowing the entire island. Ka. On this unknown island, the surrounding buildings were swallowed in an instant, and all kinds of life were absorbed. Even the surface was pulled out, revealing a lifeless appearance. Everything was hit hard. In the face of gravity, everything in the world was so fragile. This was because Blackbeard was not proficient in it after eating the dark fruit. Ha! Even if you repent now, I will not let you go. Blackbeard laughed maniacally like a maniac. He raised his voice and exposed his belly. He did not care about Wuchen's feelings and laughed maniacally. Perhaps in his eyes, Dustless was a worthless corpse after he deprived him of his ability. After a few breaths, all the darkness disappeared. Liberate! Suddenly, with a roar from Blackbeard, a black pillar of light suddenly emerged from his body. All kinds of buildings and the earth that had been swallowed before were released and gathered into a large area. The terrifying momentum almost crushed the entire sky. With a wave of his hand, all of it smashed toward Dustless. Amazing momentum. No wonder you can be so confident. Raising his eyelids, he looked at Blackbeard with pity. Dustless obviously didn't mean what he said. Although he was praising Blackbeard, there was always a slight smile on his face. Then, a black energy ball swept towards the sky. Chibaku Tensei. Chapter 669. Blackbeard's face was flushed, and even because of excessive excitement, his whole face was as red as a monkey's butt. He looked at the falling debris of various houses that almost covered the sky and gasped directly. This is the strongest and most evil devil fruit in history. Hee. Are you scared, silly? Are you kidding me? The wild laughter stopped, and it was sharp. Blackbeard's pupils widened, and he looked up at the black bead in the sky. His excited heart felt like it was stepped on hundreds of times, and the pain was unforgettable. Boom, boom, boom. The majestic gravity that was enough to destroy the entire island rushed out from the black bead, and the whole earth trembled violently as if there was a magnitude 10 earthquake. The island is shaking. No, according to the frequency of the vibration, it seems like the entire world is shaking. Blackbeard exclaimed in disbelief. His old face was cold, and he felt the boundless gravity. His hair stood on end, and it almost tore his body into pieces. He looked at the ugly black sphere in the sky in horror, and his heart was in his throat. Blackbeard was different from Red Hairshanks and Whitebeard. He was a real villain, and his life was very important. Everything he did was based on his life. Of course, it was undeniable that he was indeed very successful. Even Whitebeard, who had lived for more than half a century, fell in the hands of Blackbeard. Blackbeard, you have been wrong from the beginning to the end. I am not Red Hairshanks, nor Whitebeard. You only look at me at the level of a general. Extremely ignorant. Dustless sneered, and he was full of contempt for Blackbeard. He and Red Hair or Whitebeard fought with their lives on the line. Only Blackbeard was opportunistic, and he would immediately slip away when he saw that the wind was not right. No wonder he did not have Haushaku Haki. Don't push your luck. Blackbeard warned with a black face, but he did not sound confident. So what if I push my luck? I still want to kick your nose and slap you until you are confused. His eyes shot out a cold light, and a burst of evil eye power jumped out from his eyes, and the void rippled. Open your dog eyes and let me see what is real gravity. As soon as he finished speaking, Wu Chen put his palms together and shouted loudly. Ha! The black pearls floating in the sky instantly increased their gravitational force by dozens of times. They became denser and wider, covering the entire island. You bastard! What are you trying to do? Let me tell you, this island is finished. As a devil fruit user, you will become a drowned rat. Don't act rashly. Blackbeard quickly roared. Also, aren't you a righteous marine? Are you going to kill everyone in this path? Blackbeard thought that he was crazy enough, but he suddenly found that he was not half as crazy as Dustless. As a marine, he wanted all the people on this island to be buried with him. This should be the script for One Piece. You took the wrong script. At the same time, his vigilance against Dustless rose rapidly. Compared with the crazy old man Dustless, the latter is not even worthy of being an apprentice. People like Dustless who do things as he pleases are more difficult to deal with than anyone else. Of course I won't do it. Although I've killed countless people, I'm not a heartless person. It's just that you used to think highly of yourself and despise everything. But now, your heart and soul are trembling. Human nature is really hard to predict. Tut tut. Wu Chen smiled and joked. The shaking of the whole earth also stopped, but there was an unprecedented meteorite in the sky, completely condensed from the buildings of the entire town. The shadow coincides with the island. Is this really something that humans can do? Blackbeard's forehead was full of cold sweat, and he was full of fear. Staring at Dustless's immature face, and thinking of his past experience, there are only two endings when encountering his enemies. Either they are erased forever, or they are thrown into impel down with broken limbs. People who can do this kind of thing, Blackbeard can only think of one word: God. Ace, who was seriously injured and unconscious, was also stunned. The exaggerated meteorite filled the entire sky and occupied his entire field of vision. Maybe with just one order, the island will collapse. Blackbeard, do you know the difference between human beings and God? Dustless seemed to see through Blackbeard's inner thoughts, and immediately stretched lazily, and tiredly said. Hearing this, Blackbeard was stunned and said bluntly, "Difference? God can destroy the world with a flick of his finger, and normal human beings can only look at the sky from the bottom of a well." Blackbeard's face was full of unwillingness. Since ancient times, who didn't want to surpass this vast sky? It's just that no one can do it. Dustless just shook his finger, and his eyes fell into memory. Suddenly, he remembered the figure of Uchiha Madara in the last world. In fact, he already understood what a god is. The ambition of human beings is just to rule the paradise in front of them. Their vision is vulgar and narrow, but God uses everything in the world as a chessboard and chess pieces. This is the essential difference. Dustless said indifferently. Just like Kaguya, the goddess of Uno, she doesn't care about the so-called world at all, because she can create such a world in an instant. All human beings are her soldiers, but they are also chess pieces. Blackbeard carefully tasted the philosophy in it, and suddenly felt that Dustless's words were very reasonable. If you want to transcend this world, you can't be limited by the vulgar word world. Blackbeard suddenly felt particularly cheerful. One Piece and the king of the world are actually floating clouds. Eternal immortality is the way of the king, and for a time, his ambition soared. Staring at Dustless's smiling face, Blackbeard's smile instantly froze, and he realized that something was wrong. Are you saying that you treat everyone as a chess piece or a toy? With a black face, Blackbeard asked gloomily, thinking that Dustless was pointing out his bright path, but he didn't expect that he was taking the opportunity to ridicule him for overestimating himself. What do you think? With a smile on his face, Dustless shook his hand, and the floating meteorite in the sky also trembled. Some soil peeled off, not much, but all fell on Blackbeard's head. Chapter 670. Blackbeard's rough face was dull and fearful. He was originally a person who was afraid of death. Suddenly, he was shocked to find that there were countless particles and all kinds of dust hitting his head, and he subconsciously shook his head. A large piece of soil suddenly peeled off. His face became more and more ugly. His breathing was heavier than usual, and even the skin on the surface of his body trembled a little, and he involuntarily stepped back. Dustless's small hand shook, and the super-large meteorite in the sky also jumped. This indescribable oppression almost forced Blackbeard to collapse, and sweat kept falling like raindrops. I can't be caught by him so easily. My dream is not to just eat the dark fruit and report to the dark hell of Impel Down. It's too early. Blackbeard roared with his hand down. His tone was like a mad dog. A cornered dog will jump over the wall, and the crazy actions of Blackbeard were beyond imagination. Ah, it's really hard for you. Don't be so nervous. I said it won't fall on your head. After all, this is equivalent to a move of mutual destruction. Pointing to the meteorite, Dustless waved his hand and chuckled, indicating Blackbeard to rest assured. Your words can only deceive ghosts. Blackbeard's eyes widened, and after a muffled groan, a cruel and treacherous ache appeared at the corner of his mouth. His body suddenly plunged into darkness and swallowed him in an instant. Immediately, the black mist suddenly disappeared, and Blackbeard himself also dissipated. Ha! The dark fruit has this ability? Dustless's calm eyes splashed with ripples, and he was slightly surprised. He had never heard that the dark fruit had such a strange and unpredictable ability. He actually used the dark fruit to swallow Blackbeard himself. However, it's just a flashy trick. Observation hockey spread out and took in the wind and grass around him. Dustless suddenly chuckled casually, and the teasing laughter was obviously full of sarcasm and ridicule. The void inevitably swayed with slight ripples. Even if the concealment was seamless, It was still tantamount to a fool's dream to escape from Dustless's perception. Covering up will only increase vulnerability and make oneself look more pale and powerless. This is an evasion in the face of cruel reality. Whiz! A black iron rod condensed in his hand in an instant, and he immediately turned and threw it out with all his strength. How did this guy find me? Blackbeard was shocked and quickly revealed his physical body. Although this black iron rod looked ordinary, it gave him goosebumps. Then, he activated the dark fruits ability without hesitation. Dark water. There was a distortion in the void, and a black whirlpool suddenly appeared and swallowed the black iron rod in an instant. He actually swallowed yin-yang release. This is actually no different from an alternative space ninjutsu. Dustless secretly nodded and guessed. Release! With a loud shout, a thick black darkness suddenly emerged from Blackbeard's body. A black iron staff darted out from within, aiming at Dustless. Idiot! You want to use my ability to defeat me? You're still dreaming. Dustless leaped into the air and casually kicked away the iron rod that was transformed from the yin-yang escape. To others, the yin-yang escape was something that could not be touched. It had no effect on him at all. The focus of his line of sight turned to Blackbeard's body. His pupils were enlarged, and there were ripples in his eyes. There was a faint black irregular flame jumping. Amaterasu. Along with Dustless's voice falling, Blackbeard's body suddenly flashed with a black monstrous flame. The biggest disadvantage of the dark fruit was that it could not be elementalized. It was dark itself, so it could not be elementalized like other natural ability users. Ouch! It hurts so much. What the hell is this? Blackbeard's face was filled with astonishment as he howled in pain. His screams of pain were torturous. As time passed, his screams became sharper and sharper. He was filled with despair towards his fate. He let out a low roar, filled with unprecedented hatred towards Dustless. Get out of my way! How can I be burned by this thing? The tortured Blackbeard waved his hand, and endless darkness broke out of his body and directly swallowed the burning Amaterasu. Blackbeard stood up awkwardly, and there was a burnt stench all over his body. Where did this roasted pig come from? It's so disgusting. Would anyone eat it? Dustless smiled as he looked at Blackbeard, who was almost burnt to charcoal. Blackbeard was unmoved. His eyes were about to crack, and then he smiled cruelly. Then I'll return it to you. Enjoy it. Release. The ugly body once again erupted with a black pillar that shot into the sky. The swallowed Amaterasu was released and instantly ignited Dustless's body. You idiot. You don't seem to understand human language. I already said that my attack doesn't work on me, but against others, it's a natural enemy. Dustless looked at Blackbeard hopelessly. His body suddenly erupted with a strong devouring force, and it was like a black hole. It swallowed the Amaterasu fire in an instant. He could absorb all techniques. Hee hee. So what? Your attack doesn't work on me. Any attack can be absorbed by me. This is the power of the dark fruit. Ordinary people can't understand it. Blackbeard smiled with exultation. The dark fruit was the most ferocious devil fruit in history. When its power was used to the limit, it was not inferior to Whitebeard's tremor fruit. It was even more comprehensive in some aspects. The confidence in his words made people involuntarily convinced. It seemed that everything would play out as he predicted, and there was no escape from Blackbeard's control. Is that so? Then for the next move, you have to pay attention. Don't get killed. Sometimes it's extremely difficult to control strength. In short, I'll try to suppress it as much as possible like before. His body suddenly flashed with an emerald brilliance, and an unprecedented storm was brewing in Dustless's hand. Chapter 671. The violent hurricane was biting cold. Even the floating meteorites in the sky were rotating with the wind speed, constantly trembling. Blackbeard felt a burst of fear when he saw this. He was afraid that Dustless's technique was not good enough and he would be implicated. It's funny that such a cowardly person could become one of the Yonko, 4 emperors, in the future. Sometimes the goddess of fate is really blind. Dustless couldn't help but complain. Blackbeard didn't care. He sneered at the idea of risking one's life. Only by doing so could one set foot on the top. The so-called dignity was like human clothes. When one didn't wear it, it didn't matter. At most one would be mocked by others. But when one wore it, Blackbeard thought it was just a facade. The emerald light gradually enveloped Wu Chen's entire body. His entire body emitted a noble luster that couldn't be offended. He was so lofty that Blackbeard could only look up to him. You think you've turned the tables? It's not too late to dream now. Dustless, who had completely entered the Tensigan chakra mode, looked at him coldly. This guy was too arrogant. As long as he deliberately exposed a flaw to let him take advantage of him, he would immediately start to raise his nose to the sky. Whoosh! Between his hands, a hurricane was spinning rapidly. The hurricane was not large, about the size of Dustless's arm, but this awe-inspiring hurricane was extremely domineering. Damn it! You made me so scared. Grandpa Titch can handle such a ridiculous trick without running. Blackbeard's old face suddenly became arrogant, and he sneered at Dustless. However, before he could be proud of himself, a crimson halo enveloped him in the next second. Fire ring, pillar of fire. Blackbeard's face was dull, and he instinctively looked up. Surrounded by the cylindrical flame halo, the temperature around him began to rise rapidly. Flame. Looking at the flame falling from the sky, Blackbeard was stunned. Boom! The pillar of light condensed on Blackbeard's body suddenly exploded, and the earth trembled. The flame full of majestic destructive power was unstoppable, annihilating Blackbeard in an unstoppable manner. Looking over, it was Fire Fist Ace who launched the sneak attack. This guy is quite interesting. Dustless's eyes lit up. His view of Ace had also changed. The reason why he hadn't launched an attack was because he had sensed Ace's awakening and knew that this guy was preparing a big move. He originally thought that he would sneak an attack on Dustless, but he didn't expect that his target would be Blackbeard. Perhaps compared to the despicable and shameless Blackbeard, Dustless was much kinder. I really hope to see the scene of you being beaten until you look for your teeth on the ground. Unfortunately, I have already reached my limit, Ace said in a haggard manner. Immediately, he unwillingly shut his eyes. Taking a closer look, there was a deep red bloody hole in Ace's abdomen. It was almost pierced through. It was already a miracle that he was able to hold on until now. Most likely, he would pass away soon. Dustless frowned and looked at White Zoo. Obviously, he couldn't let the kid die peacefully. It wasn't that he was suddenly kind-hearted and thought that he would have compassion for Ace by suddenly helping him. Wu Chen wasn't the kind of person who would practice medicine to help the world. It was just that Ace who was alive was more valuable than him who was dead. White Zoo nodded, indicating that there was no problem. At the same time, the pillar of flame that shrouded Blackbeard's body gradually dissipated, revealing Blackbeard who was black all over. His hair was all burned. Fortunately, I already had a defense. Otherwise, I really would have lost my combat power. It's not impossible to be killed. Blackbeard rejoiced after surviving a disaster. Taking a closer look, he had already become bald, and his whole body was in tatters. Ha ha ha! You deserve it, you idiot! Staring at the unconscious and dying Ace, Blackbeard laughed wildly. His hatred for Ace disappeared in an instant. Anyway, there was no need to argue with a dead person. However, in the next second, his eyes widened strangely, and the refracted gaze was full of disbelief. White Zoo walked to Ace's side and looked at his wound. He didn't hesitate to cut off his right arm and put it into Ace's bloody abdomen. The white arm melted like liquid in an instant. This guy is surrounded by alien creatures. Blackbeard whispered to himself. Immediately, something even more unbelievable happened. The mysterious white liquid circled around Ace's eroded chest, and it had the magical power of decay. The wound, which was damaged by the bullet with armament hockey, slowly healed. Are you kidding me? How could this happen? Blackbeard roared in shock, with a sharp tone. At the same time, his eyes narrowed, and the light from his eyes was extremely dangerous. His eyes were locked on White Zoo, and he couldn't wait to rub him into his body. White Zoo couldn't help but have goosebumps. Are you kidding? Making a fuss out of nothing. Bringing the dead back to life is merely a thought from me. It's just that this brat doesn't have the chance to enjoy this kind of treatment, Dustless said nonchalantly. Resurrection, not reincarnation, this is the essence of Rinnegan. If you kneel and beg for mercy, lie down and shout, I am a roasted pig 3 times. I will reluctantly let you go. Dustless looked at Blackbeard, who was exuding a strange smell. At the same time, the power of the arm-sized Takenabu in his hand was reduced. Fuck, you are dreaming. Blackbeard roared sharply, his teeth were almost broken, and blood was visible to the naked eye. He was afraid of death, and he could give up all dignity in order to live, but he couldn't be tortured by Dustless. Sometimes even a stray dog wants human rights. The negotiation failed in this case. I wish you can survive. The Takenabu, which was about to dissipate, enlarged again and always maintained the size of an arm. It looked quite pale and weak. Just with this? Come at me. I promise I won't run. Blackbeard sneered. Dustless's face was full of ridicule, and he couldn't help but shake his head. The people in this world seemed to be a bit narrow-minded, including Whitebeard. Silver Wheel Reincarnation Explosion. Chapter 672. Along with Dustless's lonely voice, the entire world fell silent. The small tornado in his hand whizzed out and instantly enlarged. The high-speed rotation of the biting cold wind caused the hurricane to be as sharp as a knife. Those who were affected by it would have a shocking blood-red knife scar on their body. 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times. Until finally, it turned into a boundless apocalyptic storm. Only then did it stop evolving. The exaggerated momentum covered the sky and covered the sun. As for Blackbeard, he was already petrified. Poochie. The piercing pain caused Blackbeard's expression to change. He recovered from his daze and silently looked at the apocalyptic hurricane that was sweeping towards him. He opened his mouth but tactfully closed it. Even if he knelt down and shouted, "I, Blackbeard, am a roasted pig 3 times," Dustless would not let him go. When the divine arrow was released, there was no possibility of retracting it. Retreat quickly. Blackbeard's expression was decisive as he shouted at his companions in the distance. Immediately, he ran away without mercy. Staying here to be dismembered by the storm of swords was a stupid thing that only an idiot would do. Using the muscles on his legs to the limit, Blackbeard turned around and ran. Naive. I told you before to be tactful, but you are not tactful. Facing such a desperate situation, you can only blame yourself. You can't blame others. Dustless's mouth was suffused with a cold light as he sneered. Opportunities were given to those who were prepared. As for those who let go of the opportunity, whoosh whoosh whoosh. A person's speed was always limited. Compared to the violent wind, Blackbeard's crooked pace was not just a little bit slower. Under this situation, it was getting closer and closer to Blackbeard. Due to being too close, Blackbeard could even feel the terrifying wind and waves engulfing him. If he was caught in this extremely dense storm of swords, he would end up as a pile of minced meat. Thinking of this scene, Blackbeard's heart was thumping, as if it was going to burst out of his stomach. Want to kill me? Dream on, my dream will not be defeated by a savage demon like you. His body suddenly stopped. Blackbeard turned around and shouted loudly, trying to encourage himself and stabilize his fear. Facing death, especially the tragic death of being minced, no matter who it was, they would not be able to let it go. Dark water. A deep black hole appeared in his hand. It was different from before. Blackbeard's face was fierce as he clenched his teeth and persisted. He seemed to be struggling. This strange and irregular black hole had infinite gravitational force. The other side came from the abyss of the universe and could crush everything in the world. Ka ka ka. After a while, the black hole in Blackbeard's hand began to expand, violently pulling at the surrounding space, constantly expanding. In just the blink of an eye, it was the size of an adult human. However, this was only the beginning. The black hole condensed in his hand gradually left Blackbeard's palm and slowly rose. When it was several dozen meters above the ground, the gravitational force became several dozen times stronger. It was the same for the range. Boundless gravitational force shot out from the black hole. At this moment, space, air, and even time were all twisted and pulled over, forcibly stuffed into the black hole. The blade storm formed by the invincible Silver Wheel Reincarnation Explosion was also sucked over. Get in there, Blackbeard said with a sinister smile. Being chased away by Wu Chen like a rabbit, he had long suppressed a bellyful of resentment. Now that he could slap Wu Chen's face and destroy his trick, Blackbeard's heart was as sweet as eating honey. He was in high spirits and couldn't help but show a hearty smile. It was just that with his burned bald head. It was extremely funny. Boom boom boom. The black hole continued to expand. The black gravitational force from it was like an ancient beast. As long as one entered it, they would not be able to escape. Creatures and non-creatures were no exception. Ha ha. It seems that the final winner is still me, Dichi. Ha ha. Blackbeard waved his hands excitedly and laughed heartily. Victory is in hand? That's all it takes to make you overestimate yourself? Pathetic. Dustless shook his head helplessly. The power of the Tensigan in his right eye went berserk. He suddenly raised his right hand and aimed at the large black hole in the sky. The corner of his mouth curled into a sneer. The repulsive and gravitational forces of the Tensigan are enough to control the moon. I wonder what your dark fruit can do. I'm looking forward to it. As soon as he finished speaking, Dustless struck out with an extremely powerful repulsive force from his palm. It swept out like a monstrous wave, covering an area of 5 kilometers. Bang! Ka. In the time it took for a spark to fly off a piece of flint, the condensed black hole shattered like a mirror exploding. The black hole could not retaliate at all. It was so weak that it was not even worth mentioning. The silver wheel reincarnation explosion, that had been gradually weakened and swallowed, was released again. Moreover, due to the support of this repulsive force, it instantly moved forward dozens of meters and swallowed the dumbfounded Blackbeard. Poochie! Poochie! Ouch 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 ouch, it hurt so much. This hatred, I will definitely make you pay me back 100 times over. In the next few seconds, Blackbeard, who was being devoured, screamed again and again. His screams were even worse than that of a pig being slaughtered. Occasionally, he would shout hysterically about taking revenge on Dustless. The latter, on the other hand, was a laughing matter. Whether or not he could survive was already a problem, let alone taking revenge. The rotating hurricane only lasted for a few seconds, but its frequency was extremely high. It could cut dozens or even hundreds of times per second. What would happen to Blackbeard after being devoured for a few seconds was self-evident. Stupid man, a mere floating monster trying to shake the towering ancient tree with the power of an ant. This is what will happen to him. Your ignorance has caused a lot of harm. This world is actually filled with people like you. Dustless muttered to himself. As soon as the words fell, the raging of the silver wheel reincarnation explosion also stopped, and the trembling island also stopped. The devastated island finally withstood the final blow. Although it was already crumbling, and there was the possibility of it collapsing at any time. The pungent smell of blood came head-on. Looking closely, Blackbeard was lying in a pool of blood all over his body. The shocking wound was clearly visible, and his breath was so weak that it could be ignored. Chapter 673. Blackbeard lay on the ground half dead, motionless. His body was badly mutilated, and the long purple scars on his back were unbearable to look at. These horrifying scars were all over his body. That big bearded man can't be dead, right? If he's dead, then how can we play? It's all Father's fault. After a while, little Yushi saw that Blackbeard refused to stand up no matter what, and couldn't help but whisper. Although her voice was as soft as a mosquito's, everyone present was an expert, and her voice clearly fell into everyone's ears. This little girl. Who did she get her temperament from? It's most likely Huey. Dustless couldn't help but ridicule in his heart. His gaze involuntarily looked at Blackbeard, fearing that this brat would suddenly stand up after hearing Yushi's complaints. These words were obviously teasing Blackbeard like a toy, and anyone would be incomparably depressed. Come here, Yushi. Dustless waved at Yushi. Nodding her head obediently, Yushi took light steps and cheerfully jumped over. The moment she passed by Blackbeard, Blackbeard's originally lifeless body suddenly moved. His rough hands seemed to be able to extend without limit, easily grabbing Yushi's uniform and nimbly pulling out the gun in his hand and aiming it at Yushi's temple. This sudden scene made Dustless and White Zoo stunned. Bastard Blackbeard, if you don't want to be dismembered into pieces, quickly let go of Miss. White Zoo roared with overflowing killing intent. Keek. Do you think I'm an idiot? If I really let go of this shield, then I'll be dismembered into pieces, Just like just now, ouch. It hurt so much. Along with the twisting of his body, there was suddenly a piercing pain that penetrated deep into his bones. Blackbeard's face was as white as paper from the pain, and his whole body uncontrollably broke out in cold sweat. His eyes were filled with resentment, and he stared at Dustless with cold eyes. If looks could kill, Dustless would have already become a human stick. You can actually stand up. It seems that your body structure is really different from a normal human's. Circling around the wounds all over Blackbeard's body, Dustless thoughtfully said. Her tone was light and gentle, giving people the feeling that she was taking a leisurely stroll in the afternoon. She did not sound anxious at all after her daughter was kidnapped. Your daughter is in my hands. You should be worried about her, not my body structure. If you don't want a bullet to open a bloody hole in her head, you better be obedient, Mr. Marine Admiral. Blackbeard warned with a hoarse voice. His sharp tone carried complacency and carefreeness. The battle had already reached this stage, yet he had finally turned the tables. Even though his methods were extremely despicable, he didn't care. It was enough to survive. Hearing this, Dustless shrugged and took a few steps back. Mother Fastris Cur, no matter what, you are still a captive. Hurry up and cry for me. Looking at the devilish brat, Blackbeard's head was burning with anger. As a hostage, she should behave like a hostage. Even if she couldn't cry, she shouldn't be as excited as she was now, as if she had been injected with chicken blood. Woo woo woo. Yushi squeezed out 2 drops of sparkling tears from the corners of her eyes as she sobbed. Dustless, Sama. You should have the ability to save Mississippi. Why haven't you done it yet? White Zetsu urged. No matter how strong Blackbeard was, he was not Dustless's opponent. Even if Blackbeard was now 5 times or 10 times stronger, wanting to kill Dustless was only a fairy tale story. White Zetsu was also convinced that with Dustless's strength, he could definitely save Yushi easily. This little girl. What did Kagaya teach her over the years? Dustless just sighed to himself. The 2 drops of sparkling and translucent tears that fell to the ground were naturally seen by Wu Chen's eyes. Looking up, he saw Yushi's pair of small hands rubbing her big watery eyes. Coupled with her sobbing, it was a grief-stricken appearance. The only thing that was not complimentary was that even if the corners of her mouth were perfectly concealed, Dustless could still vaguely see Yushi's bright smile as if she had won a prize. Her acting was really clumsy, but her back was facing Blackbeard and her hands were covering, so Blackbeard didn't see it for the time being. Little Yushi obviously did it on purpose. Ja. Since you guys are so tactful, I will leave. See you later. Seeing Dustless and White Zetsu tactfully take a few steps back, Blackbeard laughed unscrupulously. His tone was full of joy of surviving a disaster. His pupils dilated, the corner of his eyes stopped at Dustless's body, as if he wanted to engrave his face in his heart forever and take it back 100 times in the future. Ja. Maybe I don't have to wait. I will immediately throw his daughter into the sea to feed the fish. Blackbeard laughed cruelly in his heart. He hated Dustless to the bone and wanted to drink his blood and eat his flesh. As long as he was sure that he could escape from Dustless's trap, he would kill his enemy's daughter. And hurt Yushi in the most cruel way. Dustless, Sama. Don't worry, that little girl did it on purpose. Waving his hand, Dustless interrupted White Zetsu's speech, staring at the gradually dissipating black shadow. He casually found a big stone and sat down. His expression indifferent and calm. He casually pulled up a green grass from the ground and held it in his mouth. When Yushi comes back, remember to wake me up. I will sleep first, White Zetsu. Finished speaking, Dustless didn't wait for White Zetsu to react and fell into a nap, causing White Zetsu's mouth to twitch, but then he thought about it and felt relieved. Dustless could give him so many strange abilities. Yushi is a direct descendant of Dustless. Even if her battle strength was not strong, she would have countless strange abilities to defend herself. Kidnapping Yushi, wanting to use her to leave safely, this was completely Blackbeard's wishful thinking. In reality he was asking for trouble. Chapter 674. Dustless was lying comfortably on a large stone. His breathing was unusually calm and clear. His breathing was very regular and natural. He was really not worried about Yushi. After a while, he opened his eyes and carefully observed the stars in the sky. A playful smile appeared on his face. He had enough confidence in Yu Shi. Of course, he was not referring to Yu Shi's strength. Although she inherited the bloodline of Dustless and Kagaya, this little girl's strength was average. Most of the reason was that she refused to learn. Yen didn't care about that. Only her ability to escape was taught by Dustless. Dustless, Sama, the relationship between Straw Hat Luffy and Pirate Hunter Zoro has changed completely. White Zetsu said without warning. The quiet night was broken by him. At this time, the sky was dark, and the sea in the distance was turbulent, setting off monstrous waves. Deep in the sea, there seemed to be prehistoric beasts rolling and stirring the sea. The whole sea was restless. Seeing this scene, Dustless couldn't help but frown. His eyes subconsciously looked at the sea where Blackbeard had escaped. Straw Hat Luffy. When did that kid hook up with Roland Zoro? Dustless, who recovered, was puzzled. If he didn't guess wrong, the two of them had met for some time, and it was not the island where he had sent Luffy off the ship. White Zetsu had expected this and told Dustless all the details of the matter. Unintentionally planted willows, and willows grow. Perhaps this is fate. After listening to White Zetsu's explanation, Dustless nodded and sighed with emotion. Everyone's fate was destined to be inextricably linked. Even if they were in different corners of the sky, they would still meet. What happened after that? What happened to those two brats? According to my guess, their strengths weren't on par with each other. The final outcome should be that both sides suffered injuries, and the victor couldn't be decided. Wu Chen said with a calm expression. Hearing this, White Zu shook his head. Dustless had guessed wrong. Luffy and Swallow had decided on a victor. Straw Hat Luffy won. Of course, after the two of them fought for several hours, Zoro was moved by Luffy's will and was willing to join his pirate regiment. However, the two of them seemed to be born unlucky. The raft that they painstakingly built was eroded by the waves in less than half a day. White Zetsu shrugged helplessly. Dustless was silent. He did not intend to disturb Luffy's plan for the time being. Sailing required many companions, and it was impossible to explore the new world with only Luffy and Zoro. What are you guys planning? Luffy is still young, he has no value to you. Fire Fist Ace opened his eyes with difficulty. His freckled face was haggard and dispirited, as if he had aged several decades. His voice was unprecedentedly weak. Due to Zetsu's emergency treatment, Fire Fist Ace had been pulled back from the King of Hell, temporarily saving his life. Chess pieces are not divided into big and small. Those who can use the steel blade are often those who are not in the mainstream. Dustless explained while shaking his finger. Dustless observed Ace's body turning, and then looked as far as his eyes could see. In a trance, he saw Blackbeard fleeing in panic. Do you already feel regret? Serves you right. That's right, people like Titch. Releasing a tiger back to the mountain is indeed a big problem. Ace used all his strength to mock Dustless. Only in this way would he be able to redeem his lost heart. Releasing a tiger back to the mountain? Nonsense. Don't be a smartass. Dustless looked down at Ace, who was lying on the ground, and then smiled. I might as well tell you, I have been thinking of a reasonable way to let Blackbeard go without being suspected. I thought for a long time, but I didn't expect him to take the initiative to kidnap Moon Shi and escape. In fact, this is in line with my plan. Dustless told the truth. The 2nd Division captain of the Whitebeard Pirates is mysteriously missing. Whitebeard is bound to be crazy looking for you. Unfortunately, no one knows that you fell into my hands. Blackbeard won't say it, and I won't say it either. What's your goal? Ace asked with an ashen face. As Dustless said, Blackbeard will never speak. For the time being, he still needs to lurk in the Whitebeard Pirates to find a place to hide from the wind, and no one else knows about this incident. If Dustless doesn't say it, only ghosts in the world will know. Staring at the battered and exhausted Ace, Wu Chen's eyes shot out a cold light. One day in the future, when you recover, I will send you to Sengoku. Ace looked sluggish and looked at Dustless incredulously. He was not an idiot. Of course he understood what it meant. His face changed in an instant, and he had guessed what his purpose was. From the beginning, your purpose was not for me to get the so-called dark fruit, but for the entire Whitebeard Pirates. His pupils shrank, Ace trembled and his back was cold. Ace, compared to you just now, You are much more enlightened now. Dustless nodded and his face was fierce. I know Sengoku's temperament. He will execute you publicly to lure the Whitebeard pirates. In the future, Ace will be sent to Sengoku after he recovers from his injuries. Sengoku will definitely announce the news as soon as possible, and then set up an inescapable net to wait for the Whitebeard pirates. This is also the script of the War of the Best that Dustless planned a long time ago. No wonder you will leave me alive. Ace's eyes were full of despair. As the son of Whitebeard, he naturally understood the character of the latter. He valued his son as his own, and when the time comes, he will desperately kill the Marine headquarters. You will definitely cause a war by doing this, which is not good for the Marine. Ace advised. Dustless's dark eyes jumped with a deep light, and there seemed to be a black mist coming out of his eyes. At this moment, he was like a demon in human skin, extremely gloomy and terrible. No good? It's true, but, as long as I can destroy this world, it doesn't matter. Chapter 675. Ace's eyes widened as he looked incredulously at the smiling Dustless. As a Marine Admiral, not only did he not choose to maintain the order of the world, but he also hoped that the world would collapse as soon as possible. It would be strange if he was not shocked. His cold eyes looked straight at Dustless's dead eyes, and the fire of ambition reflected in his eyes made Ace's eyes feel stinging. The burning flame was enough to swallow the whole world. Blackbeard thinks he's smart. Well, he deserves to be so unlucky. He wants to swallow the whole world with ambition, but he doesn't want to pay anything. It's impossible and unrealistic. Dustless whispered. There is no such thing as a free pie in the sky. A few years ago, the dark fruit that provoked the Whitebeard pirates and the Bigumamu pirates. It was just a bait I put out. I didn't expect it to really cause a war between the two evil fishes. Dustless sighed. The temptation of some devil fruits in this world is so great that it can cause a war between the Yonko, 4 emperors. After all, Doflamingo's flamingo fruit played countless pirates in the palm of his hand. The dark fruit, which is far more powerful than the flamingo fruit, is a deadly poison. Even if the Marine headquarters publicly executes me, my father will not be fooled. He is not an idiot. Ace said, but he lacked confidence, giving people a feeling of self-deception. Hearing this, Dustless just smiled silently. This is not something you should think about. Sometimes. He is such an idiot. Dustless said sarcastically. You don't have to worry about other things, as long as he is white and fat, and then welcome a death that is as eye-catching as your father's. In this world, only you and your father can enjoy it, no one else. Dustless said straightforwardly. People who can be publicly executed are rare, especially in front of the whole world live broadcast. This kind of high-standard death is only the Pirate King and his son. You shut up. He is not my father. Like a cat whose tail was stepped on, Ace lost his calm and roared. For the Pirate King Gold Roger, he has a bone-deep disgust and hatred. That's your business. You have the bloodline of One Piece. That's a fact. Otherwise, do you really think you're that valuable? Stop lying to yourself, Dustless said in disdain. He couldn't help but feel speechless for this kid. No matter how bad Roger was, he was still doing much better than Fire Fist Ace. At the very least, he wouldn't have been publicly executed, become the prey of others' schemes, and drag others down with him. The more Ace criticized Roger, the more disdainful Dustless felt. In his opinion, this was just an escape in disguise. Early in the morning of the next day, the morning breeze blew and the sun shone brightly for thousands of kilometers. The violent storm that had overturned rivers and seas had finally stopped, and the tranquility of the past was restored once more. On the empty sea, a laughing raft was clearly visible. Brat, get over here. Sitting on the raft without a care for his image, Blackbeard's expression was so ugly that it could drip water. Staring at Yushi in front of him, his heart was devastated and hit. From time to time, there would be all kinds of creatures on the bottom of the sea. Yushi would threaten Blackbeard to catch them, otherwise, she would immediately jump into the sea and commit suicide. At first, Blackbeard thought she was joking. What does a kid know about suicide? He ignored her. Unexpectedly, Yushi really jumped. On the spot, Blackbeard was so scared that he almost lost control of his bladder. For the descendant of his enemy, Blackbeard naturally held hatred. He couldn't wait to kill her, but he couldn't die now. At least he had to escape from Dustless's capture. After spending a lot of effort, Blackbeard was able to get Wuxia out. After all, he still had to rely on her to save his life. If she died, she might be caught by Dustless and torn into pieces. "What are you doing, Big Beard?" Wuxia blinked and asked, her eyes flashing cunningly. Hearing this, Blackbeard's mouth twitched, and an unprecedented grievance rose in his heart. He suddenly realized that kidnapping Wuxia was a wrong choice. Now he realized that it was not him who kidnapped Wuxia, but himself who was kidnapped by Wuxia. "Give me something to eat." After a moment of hesitation, Blackbeard took out the remaining iron box, which looked like compressed food, and handed it to Wuxia. Although he wanted to starve her, he still hoped that Wuxia would survive. "I don't want to eat this kind of thing. I want to eat a big meal." Wuxia threw it back to Blackbeard. Blackbeard's old face shot out a murderous look. He warned with a murderous look, "Brat, you better be sensible, otherwise, I will tear you to pieces, and then take a little bit to feed the pirates." Blackbeard's eyes flashed with a terrifying light, as if he was a ghost, indicating that he was not joking. "You won't. If you do that, you will die. Such a simple raft will attract pirates, and it will be destroyed by large sea kings in an instant. You are a devil fruit user. You should understand the reason." Wuxia smiled calmly. The fate of a devil fruit user who falls into the sea is self-evident and known to the world. "You are smart." Shuangyang stared at Wuxia incredulously, and couldn't help but secretly nod. It was rare for a young girl to know so much. She was about to praise her when she suddenly realized that she was currently a hostage. "Bastard, you better not give me an inch and take a mile. If you anger me, I will definitely kill you," Blackbeard warned fiercely. Obviously, he kidnapped Wuxia, but Blackbeard felt like he was waiting for a living ancestor. Blackbeard's face was black, and his face was twitching slightly. His embarrassed and angry appearance was extremely comical. A strange emotion that he had never felt before spread from the bottom of his heart. This was the first time in his life that he had felt so helpless, and was completely taken advantage of. Chapter 676. Blackbeard felt uncomfortable all over. Now it's more like being tied up. It's particularly uncomfortable. Even when he breathes, he feels an unprecedented discomfort. All in all, everything has changed. Now Blackbeard drank a stomach full of ink. He can only pinch his nose and swear that after returning to the Whitebeard pirates, he will make Dustless look good. "Remember this clearly. You're just a hostage. There's nothing special about you," Blackbeard said coldly with a cold look in his eyes. He couldn't help but feel a burst of anger. It was fine that he was beaten up by Wu Chen. That was because he wasn't skilled enough and couldn't blame others. However, this little girl in front of him was ordering him around like a princess. How could Blackbeard's arrogant self-esteem stand it? As a hostage, he can't forget his duty. "Of course I know this, Big Beard." Wuxia nodded her head in agreement, but the corners of her eyes revealed a disapproving craftiness. "It's best if you know what's good for you." Seeing this, Blackbeard was silent. This little girl was very eloquent. Blackbeard didn't think that his eloquence would be better than Wuxia. After all, most pirates are rough men. Ouch! It hurts so much. Inadvertently touching the wounds all over his body, Blackbeard's face suddenly turned pale and he screamed in pain. This tragic scream made people's scalp numb. "Seeing you in so much pain, I don't mind helping you once." A heavenly voice that could not bear Blackbeard's pain sounded out, carrying endless compassion and kindness. Blackbeard, who was rolling around in pain, suddenly stopped, and his eyes subconsciously looked over. "Just by you." Staring at Wuxia, Blackbeard sneered, full of suspicion. If it was an ordinary passerby, Blackbeard can choose to reluctantly believe it. If the daughter of his enemy chooses to help him at all costs, Blackbeard won't believe it. What's more, he doesn't think Wuxia has that ability. The way White Zetsu treats Fire Fist Ace. In fact, I can do it too, and I'm more familiar with it than him. Wuxia's thin lips opened and whispered, "White Zetsu." Blackbeard was stunned at first, Then he remembered Fire Fist Ace, who was brought back from hell. His eyes flashed with greed. 4 White Zetsu's magical power. He saw it in his eyes and remembered it in his heart. If possible, Blackbeard wanted to kidnap Zetsu to be the ship's doctor. In the end, he is just a product created by my father. What he learned can only be considered as superficial knowledge. But I have inherited most of my father and mother's abilities, compared to him, although my skills are not exquisite. Yushi said confidently as she patted her chest. Even so, it couldn't dispel the doubts in Blackbeard's heart. It was impossible for him to be so idiotic as to bet his life on the little brat. This was no different from setting himself on fire. However, these words reminded him of something. If his daughter can be abducted to my ship and become a pirate, haha. Thinking of this, Blackbeard couldn't help but laugh. Not only could he take revenge on Dustless, but he could also solve the problem of the ship's doctor, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Since you can, I'll let you treat me once. You better not lie to me, otherwise. Humph. Staring at Yushi's delicate face, Blackbeard finally made up his mind. As a reward, I will let you leave safe and sound. If you violate this oath, you will be struck by lightning. Blackbeard patted his belly, giving off a crisp sound as he vowed solemnly. His voice seemed to be filled with magic, causing others to involuntarily believe him. At the same time, dozens of meters below the sea, a sea king slowly moved forward. Its eyes were strange 3-tomo Sharingan. Obviously, it has been forcibly controlled by Dustless to eavesdrop on the traces of Blackbeard and Yushi. Yushi, who hadn't returned for a night, still caused Dustless to worry. Serves you right. Your daughter was kidnapped by Titch. She's dead for sure. Ace taunted. He took the opportunity to add insult to injury. White Zetsu's face was cold when he heard this, and he directly went up with a heavy kick. Boom. Even though Baiju's attack power was strong, his strength was far beyond that of a normal human. He kicked Ace's face until it bled profusely. Just him? The simple and casual words were full of confidence, and at the same time full of contempt for Blackbeard. Dustless calmly said, Yushi inherited the body characteristics of me and Kagaya, and has the ability to repair without limit. It's difficult for Blackbeard to kill her. Looking at the unwilling Ace with pity and sympathy, Dustless didn't even have the mood to ridicule him, and waited quietly. On the slowly drifting raft. Looking carefully, Blackbeard is no longer the same as before. His whole body has recovered, his whole body is bright, and his face is red. Blackbeard is no longer as depressed as before, and his whole body is full of vitality, glowing with a strong vitality. Haha! This feeling of pleasure is really good. Waving his arms, Blackbeard's mouth stinks, comparable to rotten fish. You're letting me go now, right? Covering her nose, Yushi's voice is pleasant to the ear, and her exquisite jade hand is gently waving, trying to isolate Blackbeard's bad breath. Let you go? How is that possible? Do you think I will obediently be the ship's doctor? Blackbeard's face changed into a sinister smile. Yushi's beautiful eyes flowed with sparkling tears, and her white and tender fingers trembled as she pointed at Blackbeard. You, how can you be so shameless, saying that you will be struck by lightning for breaking the oath? Blackbeard's face is sinister, and the corner of his mouth is high, with a contemptuous smile, pointing at the void. His expression is arrogant, with an indescribable savagery. If you don't accept it, then let the heavens strike me. Boom, boom, boom. The moment his voice fell, the cloudless sky suddenly became gloomy, and dark clouds gathered in the depths of the clouds, and dazzling thick lightning crackled, shocking the sky. The oath came true. You are on your own. Yushi blinked her eyes and smiled evilly. Blackbeard's eyes widened, and he looked at the lightning in the sky in horror. His heart was filled with fear, and he instinctively retreated, and a mouthful of old blood directly burst out. What kind of joke is this? Why didn't my previous wish come true? Chapter 677. In the sky above, dark clouds gathered and lightning flashed. The clouds above and below the clouds stirred, presenting a scene of the end of the world. The same scene played out in the sky within a radius of 10 miles. Oppressive and spectacular. Damn heavens, I didn't see you open your eyes before, but now you have. Blackbeard roared in fear. He couldn't bear the oppressive lightning. He pointed at the sky and cursed, as if this was the only way to vent the depression in his heart. Boom, boom, boom. The dark clouds in the sky seemed to understand Blackbeard's curses. The dark clouds in the sky expanded again, and the lightning became even more terrifying, as if it wanted to destroy the entire sea. Blackbeard smacked his lips as he saw this scene. He lowered his eyes and a cold light flashed in them. Is this little girl the heaven's granddaughter? Blackbeard, who didn't believe in ghosts and gods, guessed. For a moment, he also suspected that his brain was damaged. Jejej. The clear and melodious sound of a silver bell entered his ears and Blackbeard was stunned. He raised his head and looked down at Wuxia. It must be because of you, you little rascal. Blackbeard's eyes revealed an ominous glint. He immediately showed his evil character. He raised his right arm and pointed his palm in the direction of Wuxia. A majestic gravitational force suddenly shot out. Dark water. Blackbeard laughed sinisterly. However, the next scene caused him to be stunned. His face was filled with astonishment. Wuxia's body seemed to not exist. She was completely immune to the gravitational force. No matter how strong it was, how wide the range was, it couldn't shake her. Hee hee. Big beard. You will never be able to catch me. Her eyes narrowed into crescents. Wuxia smiled proudly. Her crisp laughter was like the sound of a mountain spring, pleasant to the ear. However, Blackbeard felt a wave of nausea. It was full of sarcasm and ridicule. She was so close, but he couldn't shake her. Wasn't this indirectly mocking him for being useless? I'm just thinking for you. You have angered the heavens by randomly swearing. If you kill me, you won't even have a corpse left. Wuxia softly persuaded. Blackbeard only sneered when he heard this. Although I don't know how it happened, it should be your doing. As long as I kill you, all of this will disappear. Blackbeard said through gritted teeth. At this point, he had also given up on his unrealistic thoughts. As long as he could quickly send this living ancestor away, nothing else mattered. As for the idea of asking her to be the ship's doctor, he had also thrown it out of the window. Survival was the most important thing. Kill me? The key is, can you do it? Her thin lips slightly opened. Unlike the past, Wuxia said lightly like a breeze. Kagaya was a divine tree, possessing insane vitality and recovery abilities. She had also inherited a large amount of chakra. You're just a little girl. Don't get carried away. Boom, boom, boom. Blackbeard's angry roar had yet to fall when the divine lightning that had been brewing for a long time rumbled down. The momentum of the divine lightning that could destroy the heavens and the earth made people tremble with fear. A trace of despair involuntarily rose from the bottom of their hearts. Fortunately, Blackbeard, who has extraordinary observation hockey, has already predicted that although the lightning is fast, his attainments in observation hockey are deeper. Dark water. The space shattered like a mirror, and a gigantic black hole suddenly appeared. At the instant the lightning and thunder attacked Blackbeard, his heart leaped to his throat. Then, the boundless gravitational force from the black hole spread out and instantly engulfed it. TSK, 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 TSK. Idiot! Blackbeard beamed with joy. Gravity is the natural enemy of all things and affects the whole world. There is no ability that can ignore its existence. It can be so powerful now. When it is easy to use in the future, its power will be even more terrifying. You really are an idiot. Looking at Blackbeard with pity, Little Moon she let out a long sigh that did not match her age. There is no doubt that gravity is terrible. He also has to vary from person to person. Although the strength of temporarily obtaining the dark fruit is strong, he is still too far away to completely control it. You can swallow lightning, that's your self-deceiving idea. Wuxia said indifferently. Boom, boom, boom. As if it was efficacious, a vast and pure lightning that was dozens of times thicker than before converged and instantly became 10 times thicker. The oppressive lightning made people not dare to look directly at it, and the hair all over their body trembled uncontrollably. Blackbeard's old face involuntarily flashed with fear. What a shocking aura! Blackbeard said with an ugly expression. This was not all the lightning in the sky. If all of them gathered together and fell. Just imagining it made Blackbeard shiver, and the fear in his eyes disappeared in an instant. Coax her. Blackbeard, who thought for a long time without any countermeasures, could only lower his arrogant head and turn to ask little Yushi for help. The situation was stronger than him. If he wanted to live, he had to beg for mercy. His rough fat face tried to maintain a kind smile, even though it looked ugly as a pig. The moment he turned around, Blackbeard was dumbfounded. His mind was blank, and he lost the ability to think. The scene in front of him was actually empty. As for Yushi, she had already run to God knows where. Only Blackbeard with a face full of astonishment, waiting for the lightning to strike. Boom, boom, boom. While Blackbeard was in a daze, the thunder that filled the sky poured down in torrents. The short gap eroded him. His whole body was like a lightning man bathed in lightning. One could clearly see the skeleton inside his body. Dustless, who was resting with his eyes closed, suddenly frowned. He felt a pair of small hands surrounding him. Opening his eyes, the reflection in his eyes was the smiling Yushi. Sighing helplessly, Dustless picked her up and scratched her nose. "It's time to go back, Yushi," Dustless said softly. Then he carried her and disappeared from the island. He easily walked to the surface of the sea. It was clearly just a simple walk, but one step could strangely cross a distance of hundreds of meters. As for Fire Fist Ace, the person in charge of him was White Zetsu. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.